Nigel Farage is promising a political revolt as he takes over Reform and announces plans to run for Parliament in the Essex constituency of Clacton.
I'm really calling for, and what I intend to lead, is a political revolt. Yes, a revolt.
A bombshell poll blow for the PM as he turns his attention to tackling immigration to boost the Conservatives' electoral chances.
Keir Starmer's in Manchester today as he warns about Britain's reliance on energy from rogue foreign states.
As we approach the anniversary of D-Day, we're looking into the code breakers who were crucial to success of the invasion.
And the sport, Euro warm-up games. Now, look, they weren't overly inspiring, but they are warm-ups. England beat Bosnia and Herzegovina 3-0. Scotland won 2-0 away at Gibraltar. Leicester's manager jumped ship to Chelsea, and England begin the defence of their T20 World Cup today against Scotland.
So it's election news we begin with. Nigel Farage has shaken the campaign up, announcing he will stand for Reform UK in the constituency of Clacton. Clacton is in Essex. He takes over the party from Richard Tice.
Well, let's take a look back at what all the leaders got up to on what was a very important political day yesterday.
So I have decided I've changed my mind. It's allowed, you know. It's not always a sign of weakness. It could potentially be a sign of strength. So I am going to stand in this election. I'll be launching my candidacy at midday tomorrow in the Essex seaside town of Clacton.
At the end of the day, on July 5th, one of two people will be Prime Minister, either Keir Starmer or me. A vote for anyone who's not a Conservative candidate is just a vote to put Keir Starmer in number 10.
Liberal Democrats have put health and social care front and centre of our campaign in this general election. We have a plan to tackle the cost of living, and we've been leading the campaign to end the scandal of raw sewage dumping.
That just before this election, the Tories questioned this Labour Party's commitment to national security. And I will not let that stand. The people of Britain need to know that their leaders will keep them safe, and we will.
The Equalities Act was passed over a decade ago, and what's clear today is that there's a lack of clarity in the law, and that's risking the safety of women and girls.
What the Conservatives are doing today is part of a deliberate strategy to undermine the powers of the Scottish Parliament.
Something is happening out there. There is a rejection of the political class going on in this country in a way that has not been seen in modern times.
And today on the campaign trail, the Prime Minister will battle another slump in the polls. He will announce a new immigration camp. We'll be chatting with James Cleverly at the end of the hour on that.
Yeah, of course, he is the Home Secretary. Well, Sir Keir Starmer will head to Manchester today as he continues to flex Labour's security credentials, raising the alarm over the energy reliance on rogue foreign states like Russia. Meanwhile,
the Liberal Democrats will be campaigning on the need for better day-to-day care for adults in need, including the elderly and disabled.
Well, let's speak to the Deputy Editor at Spiked, Fraser Myers, about what was a momentous day yesterday. So many entertaining comment pieces in the papers today. Comments like, just when we thought this was going to be the most boring election outside of North Korea, in comes Nigel Farage. Lots of interesting layers to this, though. And one of the columns that I have just been reading, Stephen Glover in the Mail, saying, funnily enough, him entering into the contest at this precise moment in his career, if he's successful, because this is his 7th attempt, if he's successful, could actually undo some of his own personal achievements, such as Brexit, because actually he'd be handing power to Labour, who want closer alignment with Europe.
Well, I think, first of all, it is right to say that this has given the election a shot in the arm. It has been a pretty lifeless campaign. People are getting a bit demoralised, I think, with the sort of Sunak v Starmer snooze fest. You know, on the one hand, you have a Tory leader who's betrayed his own voters. On the other hand, you have a Labour leader who seems to believe in nothing beyond his own election into Downing Street. So this has given us something fresh to think about. It's going to shake things up. Is Farage potentially betraying himself, is the question being asked, by helping Keir Starmer with a perhaps enhanced majority? Everyone assumes that Farage is going to be taking votes off the Tories, particularly in the most difficult seats where they're struggling. I mean, yes and no. We know Keir Starmer's an inveterate Remainer. He can't necessarily be trusted on the Brexit question. But do the Tories have a right to rule, I suppose, is the question you could put.
Well, obviously not, because the latest polls are saying 194-seat majority to Labour on this. And the thing that I scratch my head about is, how is that even possible with the man as dull and boring? Seriously, I mean, you look as Keir Starmer, you think, who in the right mind would actually say he should lead the country? And yet 194-seat majority, which shows just how people think the Conservatives have done such a poor job.
Well, exactly. And a 194-seat majority would be larger than Blair in 1997. I think it would be the second largest in UK history. And again, for Keir Starmer, of all people, I think this is entirely a product of the Tory collapse. I don't think there are very many people at all out there who are enthusiastic about a Labour government, who are even very clear, particularly what Labour or Keir Starmer stand for. This is a product of the Tories turning back on their voters, particularly their newer voters, the voters they won over after Brexit in 2019. If you look at the drill down in some of that polling, it looks as if the red wall seats that Boris Johnson famously won over to the Tories, they're going to go entirely back to Labour by the looks of things. Again, it's by Tory voters, most of the time, most of them not going towards Labour, many of them saying they're not going to vote or they don't know, or switching towards Reform and Nigel Farage. And one thing that's been interesting is that over the past 2 weeks, the polls haven't really moved at all. Will Farage throwing his flat cap into the ring change that?
Well, this 194-seat majority, this bombshell poll, was conducted before this announcement, so one can only imagine what it might be like if it was done today. The big scalps that have come out in this poll is likely to lose their seats. We already knew were in contention, but Jeremy Hunt, Penny Mordaunt, Grant Shapps and Gillian Keegan, all senior members within the Cabinet. So what are the Tories doing today to come out all guns blazing and try and win back the narrative? Talking about immigration, but this time setting a cap on those who come in as foreign workers. Is that going to swing it? Why haven't they done that before?
Well, I think people will point out that the Tories have proposed this. I think this is the fourth time this has been proposed by the Conservatives, and people will rightly ask, well, why haven't you done this before? Even when we were in the EU, they could have done this to non-EU migrants. For whatever reason, they chose not to. I think what has happened to the Tories is that they've almost... people are not listening to them anymore. So there has been this sort of policy blitz over the past couple of weeks, some quite, eye-catching policies, from national service to pensions quadruple lock and now this cap on immigration. But I think a lot of people have just stopped listening. They're thinking, we don't trust you, especially on immigration, where they promised in 2019 to bring immigration down. I think the net migration tripled. So everything's been going in the wrong direction under the Tories, and people have had enough.
What direction will it go for Rishi Sunak after all of this? When presumably he's annihilated at the polls. How do you see the new Conservative Party emerging?
Well, I think actually this is what Farage is really playing for. Perhaps not. He's not going to. I don't think it's likely that he's going to get a lot of seats. Perhaps he will win in Clacton, where he's standing. But I don't think anyone is expecting Reform to sweep the board or to replace the Conservative Party in Parliament. But will he influence the direction of travel after the election, when the Tories are in opposition? I think that's what he's hoping to do, to ensure that the Tories don't go down this kind of one nation liberal centrist route in the way that they were sort of threatening to.
So you could still see Farage as a member of the Conservative Party?
Well, let's see. I wouldn't put anything, I wouldn't rule anything out. And I think it's interesting to look at what is Farage thinking about. We talk a lot in Britain, we've been thinking, what's this election going to look like? Is it going to look like 92, where the Tories, miraculously hold on, like John Major did? Or will it be 97, where there'll be a sort of wipeout, thanks to Tony Blair? Actually, Farage is thinking about Canada in 1993. So this is where the Conservative Party of Canada was reduced to a rump of just 2 seats, going from government to 2 seats. And that was partly because they lost seats to a right-wing challenger party. The name of that right-wing challenger party was reform.
Interesting.
And later on, the two parties were merged, and so the right-wingers there were able to influence the mainstream centre-right.
It's so interesting. I mean, he said, not on your Nelly, is there going to be any sort of deal with the Tories? He said over the weekend he wanted to destroy it. Kemi Badenoch yesterday, who's being touted widely as a replacement for Sunak after the election, said absolutely would not welcome him into the party. He's campaigned against us for decades. So there doesn't seem to be a lot of love lost at the moment between the two, but who knows? We could see defections the other way from Tories on the right of the party over to join him if he does get into Parliament.
Mystic Myers, thank you very much indeed for your predictions there. Very, very interesting. And if it's got you thinking, it's got you talking, get in touch today and we'll have Fraser back in about 50 minutes' time.
Yeah, worth mentioning as well, of course, as Nigel Farage is standing in Clacton, there are a whole host of other candidates as well up for election. So Jovan Owusu-Nepal is the Labour Party's candidate, Giles Watling for the Conservatives, Matthew Ben-Silem for the Lib Dems, Farage, as you know, Nigel Farage for Reform, Natasha Osborne for the Greens.
And the list of candidates isn't finalised as the deadline isn't until later this week, so there could be more additions there. It will be published on the GB News website. Once it is finalised, GB News has extended an interview invitation to all the candidates taking part in that constituency.
Now, all week we are focusing on the commemorations of the 80th anniversary of D-Day, fast approaching later on this week, and ahead of official events in Portsmouth and Normandy over the next 2 days.
And that's where you'll be tomorrow.
I'll be in Portsmouth tomorrow, yeah.
Over the past week, we have been speaking to veterans and remember those who fought for our freedom. Joining us now is our reporter, Sophie Reaper, who is in Normandy today on one of those beaches to tell us more. Sophie, good morning to you.
A very good morning to you both. Yes, we're joining you from Omaha Beach, one of the two beaches where American troops landed on D-Day. We know that that anniversary is happening this week. In just a couple of days' time, we'll be marking 8 decades since that momentous occasion. And to join us to talk a little bit more about that now is my guest this morning, Kenneth. A very good morning to you, Kenneth. Thank you so much for joining us. My first question for you is, we were chatting a little bit earlier and you told me that your granddad actually fought in Normandy, didn't he? Do you want to talk to us a little bit about his story?
He came to Normandy at the start of 1945 to come up, get together with the 20th Armored. He was with the 33rd Cavalry Reconnaissance Squadron. The 20th made the last big push across Europe. And up until the end of the war.
I know that around your neck you've got some pictures. Do you mind if we have a look at those? So just explain to our viewers so this is your granddad, isn't it?
Yeah, this will be my mom's father, 1944, just before he shipped out to Normandy.
And on the back side of that, I know he was a part of the victory. So talk to us a bit about that in Austria.
Yeah, well, this will be Austria, 1945, they were on their way to Austria when the war was called, and they made it there, and then this is the picture in Austria.
And this is your grandfather, this gentleman here, isn't it?
Right there.
How proud are you of your grandfather for the part he played in winning World War II?
Well, I'm amazed that he was even actually here, because it was an experience he never talked about. Like a lot of veterans, you rarely heard any war stories. And I knew he was in the Army, but that was it. Growing up as a kid, I'd never heard any stories. It wasn't until I got a box of letters from my mom, from granddaddy to grandma, talking about his time in France. They were all stamped from France. And he just mentioned things he was doing there. And I looked at the times he was there, and it was like lined up perfectly. So that's how I found out he was actually in Normandy.
Absolutely amazing. Kenneth, thank you so much for joining us this morning. Incredible to hear stories of family members of those who fought in Normandy, and I'm sure over the coming days we'll be hearing plenty more stories just like that of Kenneth's grandfather.
Yeah, and Sophie, so poignant to see you on that beach, such a clear, calm morning, and just to think of the scenes 80 years ago as those boats and all the heavy artillery and tanks and everything brought up onto the shore. Such a huge act of deception, completely defied Hitler, and yeah, just so worthwhile, all of us remembering everything that happened all those years ago. Thank you, Sophie.
Thank you very much indeed. The weather is a bit stormier than it is today. It's not just the men who fought in Normandy. Hundreds and thousands of women recruited by the government worked day and night to decode the secret German messages that led to the Allies' success.
Well, the historian and broadcaster Tessa Dunlop has paid a visit to one of those codebreakers.
Operation Overlord, the unprecedented Allied campaign to liberate Western Europe and defeat the Nazis, has long been immortalised in films, books and documentaries. Much less well known is the crucial role hundreds of thousands of women from all walks of life played in D-Day. They occupied numerous vital roles, including at Bletchley Park, where the majority of recruits were female, working around the clock to deliver ultra-intelligence on enemy movements in France for the Allies. Among their number was Ruth Bourne. Nowadays she's 98, but then she was a young wren fighting the same war as the men on the beaches. Ruth operated one of Alan Turing's bomb machines that helped decrypt Enigma-encoded communications.
We were initially told the work we were doing was specialised. It was to be quite hard work.
So you are at the coalface of the decryption with the bomb machine, but once this ultra-rich material is being harvested, you then have to translate it differently from the original German.
You have to rewrite it.
Yeah, so the Germans don't know that you've been reading their hand.
Yeah, like the good old-fashioned précis that we used to do at school.
Could you explain what it was like to first meet a bomb and what those bombs did?
Well, we met the bomb. It was a little bit surprising. It was very tall. I think it was 7 feet high, 6 foot wide, about 2 foot deep, and it made a chugging noise as the wheels, all these wheels were going round and round.
Do you have any idea of the bigger picture of what you're doing?
Absolutely not. It was another job where women went and operated the machinery while the men went to war.
For many, many years, you weren't aware of the impact of what you were doing, and I find that really interesting.
It was only after 30 years when the security blanket was lifted and the first book came out. I read the importance of the Enigma secret.
It takes a long time, not just for women's war effort to be recognised, but more specifically, the secret work that women did. Ruth didn't get a Bletchley Park medal until the late 1990s, and then the pièce de résistance, her Légion d'honneur, in 2019, aged 94.
Now I know how important the work was. My life would have been completely different if it hadn't been for not just doing something in the war. Didn't make my life different. But when it all came out, the importance of what we'd done, I was very privileged to have been chosen. You know, I'm very privileged.
Thank you, Ruth. Thank you for sharing.
You look at that and you can realise straight away what an exceptional person Ruth is. And to be, I mean, today, even at her age, to be so compass mentis and on the ball and genius, I mean, to work, I would never have the brain.
No, me neither.
To decipher codes.
No.
To do all of that.
Yeah, I was reading about Alan Turing to my kids last night, trying to get them in the mood for this week, and I could see my son thinking, could I do computer programming? Could I do that? And it's a very, very niche sort of thing. But I thought it was really interesting when Ruth was saying that she felt privileged to have been chosen to do that. And also when Sophie Reaper was speaking to the grandson of a vet veteran there and saying, you know, how proud do you feel? It's amazing how there's no mention of pride from that generation. There's so much humility. There's a sense of privilege that they were called up, that it was their duty, that they did what they had to do. There's no sort of arrogance, and it's a sort of quiet humility, which I think is really precious about that generation.
Absolutely. Amazing. We'll be forever in their debt. Let's have a look at some other stories coming into the newsroom on this Tuesday morning. The time is 6:20. British-Israeli hostage Nadav Popplewell is amongst 4 captives who have been found dead in Gaza. According to Israeli authorities, the 51-year-old was taken hostage along with his 79-year-old mother on October the 7th. It's understood Popplewell's remains are still in Gaza. It comes as the White House stressed it is confident its latest proposal for a ceasefire could go ahead very soon.
A 91-year-old man's made history as the first patient in England to receive an artificial cornea. Cecil Farley from Surrey has suffered eyesight issues for the past 15 years and, followed a failed human cornea transplant, opted to use an artificial one instead. Well, medics say they hope that one day the new corneas could reduce the need for human donations.
But does it work? No one's told us if it actually works. Absolutely amazing if it does. And one to keep in mind ahead of your next holiday, a study has found that the combination of drinking alcohol on a flight and taking a nap may put excess strain on your heart. Academics from the Institute of Aerospace Medicine have warned airlines to consider restricting access to alcohol on long-haul flights.
I think that study's really interesting. The number of times I've popped a sleeping pill to help me sleep on a long-haul flight and had a sort of large glass of wine as well to help me on my way. It's actually very, very dangerous. So take note.
Well,
it's not advisable.
Everything seems to be dangerous now. I don't know.
It's not a nice place to have heart troubles, though, is it, on a long-haul flight?
Well, I think they'd be better off working out just how to make airplanes more comfortable and to access us, get us on board easily and off board easily.
We've got to wear your seatbelts the whole way now, they're talking about, after all this turbulence, and I just know how uncomfortable that is. And we're all encouraged to get up and walk about and exercise on long flights, but then there's this risk of turbulence now. So flying's just not what it was, is it? Certainly doesn't seem that way to me.
No. A study of over 1 million pupils across Britain and Ireland has found 4.4% decline in the number of books students are reading.
The What Kids Are Reading report study has been going on for 16 years, and this is only the second time the number of books being read has decreased.
But it's hardly gone down at all. Author of the report, Keith Toppins, joins us now. 4.4%, it's hardly worth bothering about, is
I
it,
reckon people
Keith?
fib.
Well, it's significant, Eamonn, because it is the first decline, apart from a small decline during the lockdown. So we're somewhat concerned that this may be the start of a trend. It's also linked to National Literacy Trust data about the decline in reading motivation more generally. They're also seeing a decline with a different kind of survey.
I just, there is a decline in one form of reading, but, there may be an increase in other forms of reading. Because you're reading electronically, does that make it less worthwhile?
Well, that's perfectly true. And in the research, we also studied one particular kind of electronic reading. The problem with the electronic reading we studied was that the students tended to read material that was not sufficiently challenging for them. And of course, if you're not reading material that gives you some challenge, you're not going to improve your reading capability.
I wonder if with reading as well, I'm sure this is the case in adults, I don't know about in children, but I wonder in these sorts of surveys when you ask kids if actually they inflate what they are reading anyway and actually the decrease could be bigger. My suspicion just with my own children is they're always telling me, Mummy, yes, I've read it, I finished it, because I'm nagging them. If you finished reading your book, you need to go and test whether you've read it or not. But I have a feeling they might be fibbing. Do you think I might be right?
Well, we didn't actually ask the children. What we did was measured their performance on a comprehension quiz on books that they had already read. So we didn't take their perceptions or stories into account.
Keith, what about what they should be reading? Obviously, you know, in my day, the classics that were there, I don't know if they still apply, or life has moved on and kids should be concentrating on other things. But what is it today that you would recommend for today's modern readers that they should be into?
Well, don't despair, Eamonn, because, you know, children do still read the classics, and we have evidence that they read the classics with a high degree of comprehension in the upper age ranges. But the striking thing more recently is that graphic novels have become more popular. And one of the difficulties with graphic novels is that, again, they tend to be too easy. The children don't select things that are sufficiently challenging for them.
Graphic novels, sorry, do you mean illustrated novels, or do you mean things like Harry Potter, where they're very in-depth and detailed sort of imagery?
No, I mean a graphic novel in the sense that it's virtually like a comic. Every page is full of illustrations with each bubble.
Keith, I have to say, when I was young, that helped me so much. I was an avid reader of comics. On top of everything else, everything from the Beezer to the Dandy to the Victor to the Hotspur, right through, and then the American DC comics on top of that as well. But the classics, for me, the book that always stayed with me was Treasure Island, Robert Louis Stevenson's Treasure Island. It just created so much imagery, and I could understand it, and it painted a picture for me.
But I suspect it was also quite difficult for you. And I suspect that you persevered with reading it, even though some words were impenetrable to you. And that's exactly the kind of challenge that we want children to be exposing themselves to.
It's lovely talking to you, Keith, because what you do is, I think you remind us that there is an escape, there is something else. We can forward our thinking and our reading skills, and there's a great beauty to be had in reading books. So thank you for the reminder.
Yes, thank you very much indeed. And it's also quite nice to reminisce about what your favourite childhood novels were. Perhaps you can send in your thoughts on your sake. I was just thinking when you were talking that I've got a few. When I was littlest, it was the Millie Molly Mandy stories, because they had this amazing illustration, which a lot of the books copied nowadays, but back then it was rare, of a map of the village, and Millie Molly Mandy would go about this little village doing her errands. I loved The Borrowers. I absolutely adored The Borrowers. And then it was the Little House on the Prairie series, which was about settlers in America. And it was, for me, those are the most vivid stories that I enjoyed as a child.
Chronicles of Narnia as well. But then the author, whose name I now forget, who wrote the Chronicles of Narnia?
C.S. Lewis,
he lived in the house beside me in Belfast.
Oh, really?
Not where I grew up, where I now live.
Alice in Wonderland has connections to Guildford, where I grew up and went to school. It was written in Guildford, and his sisters all settled. He bought them a house, and he's buried very close to my parents who live in Guildford. So there you go, these connections to literature. What gets you going in your memories of reading, or perhaps you're reading to your grandchildren or your children at the moment? Have you noticed a decline in interest from the youngsters in your life? Let us know.
You'll notice an increase in interest if you bank what we're going to give you. This is the Great British Giveaway. Have a go.
It's the Great British Summer Giveaway, and have we got a prize for you? There's a totally tax-free £15,000 in cash to make your summer spectacular. Spend that extra cash however you like. You'll also win a brand new iPhone, Apple AirPods, and if that wasn't enough, a £500 voucher to spend at your favourite UK attraction, so you can enjoy amazing days out this year. For a chance to win the iPhone, treats, and £15,000 cash, text WIN to 63232. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message, or post your name and number to GB06 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 28th of June. Full terms and privacy notice at gbnews.com/win. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Wouldn't that be nice?
Good luck with Paul Coit. He's up next with all the sport.
This is GB News, and we are Britain's election channel.
This vote may seem to be about the politicians and the media, but it's actually about you. We won't forget that.
Join us up and down the country as we follow every moment together.
More than ever, it's important to hear all sides
as you make your decision in the run-up to polling day.
This is GB News,
the People's Channel. Britain's election channel.
We're GB News, and we come from a proud tradition of British journalism.
That's why I'm so excited to be here. It's something so new.
The first news channel to be launched in Britain in over 30 years.
Launched to represent the views of the British people.
To go where other broadcasters refuse to go.
How did you find out about the story in the first place?
Launched with one aim.
To be the fearless champion of Britain.
It's an absolutely fantastic atmosphere here.
This is GB News.
The People's Channel. GB News, Britain's news channel.
GB News is Britain's election channel.
And when the big stories break, we're tackling them on Britain's newsroom. When we disagree, and we disagree a lot, it's even livelier than normal.
We don't disagree that much.
We do.
His comedy, though, is revolting. I knew her, unlike you.
That explains Beverly Turner's temperament.
It's a bit frosty in here, isn't it?
He'll have one of me one day.
For dartball practice.
Britain's newsroom on GB News. Weekdays, 9:30 a.m.
GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Patrick Christie's. Every weeknight from 9, I bring you 2 hours of unmissable, explosive debate and headline-grabbing interviews. What impact has that had?
We got death threats and the bomb threat and so on.
Our job is to do what's in the best interest of our country.
You made my argument for me.
My guests and I tackle the issues that really matter, with a sharp take on every story.
I'm hearing it up and down the country. That was a beginning, not an end.
Patrick Christie's tonight from 9 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
This is GB News, and we are Britain's election channel.
This vote may seem to be about the politicians and the media, but it's actually about you. We won't forget that.
Join us up and down the country as we follow every moment together.
More than ever, it's important to hear all sides
as you make your decision in the run-up to polling day.
This is GB News,
the People's Channel. Britain's election channel.
Now, a couple of big internationals, well, none of the big internationals, preparations for Euro 2024, whatever. England were in action last night, Scotland were in action as well. England against Bosnia, Paul.
Yes, we can't really read too much into these, you know?
No.
It's always before an international tournament, you'll get the warm-ups, and they're never going to be terribly exciting.
Well, you get that young lad called Palmer scoring, which is exciting. People think, ooh.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he was. There were some very good performances because they put a young side out, and England beat Bosnia and Herzegovina 3-0. And to be honest with you, it was a little bit boring. And it took 60 minutes for the first goal, and Cole Palmer scored that. And it was a penalty. But the thing is, Harry Kane, who's the usual penalty taker, he was actually on the sidelines and he was actually tugging at Gareth Southgate going, can I go on? Can I go on, boss?
Yeah.
And it's like, no, let him take this. So Palmer took the penalty. Trent Alexander-Arnold scored an excellent goal after 85 minutes. Then Harry Kane got his 63rd England goal.
Incredible.
After 89. So it was one of those where we're looking at players, seeing who looks good. 33 players in the squad at the moment, which goes down to 26, which will be on Friday evening. Now, Gareth Southgate's got until midnight Friday night, so I don't know who's going to wait until 1 minute, 2 and go, ha, there it is. Because England play Iceland on Friday evening, so it'll be after that. That is when the 26, the final 26, will be announced.
Well, meanwhile, you've got Scotland, who were out in Gibraltar. Very nice. I just wonder the point of it. Do you know how many people live in Gibraltar? 32,649. I mean, that's probably, the average gate at Fulham or something.
Well, if I looked into this as well, and that is if you and I were in Gibraltar, the chances are we would have been able to play for Gibraltar as well that day.
But then, so how do you interpret a 2-0 score for Scotland? Should that not have been 8-0?
Well, all I can say is that they did have 22 shots before the first goal went in.
Right.
So I don't know whether they just put 11 players in front of the goal and everybody's... But they should. And when you look at Gibraltar, I mean, for crying out loud, you've just summed it up. I mean, there's probably more monkeys are in Gibraltar than actually humans
around
the rock. But you know what? I'm just going to ignore it because it's before the actual Euros, so it doesn't matter. It's just a matter of just keeping everybody fit. So 14th of June is when the Euros starts. So we're only 10 days away. First game is Scotland versus Germany, which is on the Friday, so that's 8 p.m, and England plays Serbia on the Sunday.
And I suppose it's better going into tournament winning than
exactly.
Than not.
And it's looking at the players. As long as everybody's fit, then we can make the decisions. We start worrying once the actual Euros.
Do you know what would put me off Gibraltar? And I've landed in Gibraltar a few times, and you have to cross the border and all that sort of thing. It's a very steep.
It is.
The plane comes in, then has to turn at a cliff face. Anyway, that aside, monkeys. I couldn't stand. See people say feed the monkeys and whatever.
I don't try. See, I know we're going to go off on one here, but I took the kids to, I can't even remember, was it Woburn? And the thing is, and it was my fault, because with the monkeys there, we're driving the car round.
The safari park.
Yeah, it was the safari park. So we went once round, and the kids are going, no monkeys were on the roof. No monkeys were on the roof. And I'm saying, well, don't worry, we'll go back again. So the monkeys are on the roof, and then we have the situation where people are pointing at our car going, oh, look at that, look at that. And then my son, Joe, at the time, I think he was about 5 or 6, and he got so upset because the monkeys were coming in the car, and he looked out and he went, you naughty monkeys! And he was so upset, and they did about £1,000 worth of damage to the car.
Yeah.
So I ate those monkeys.
Yeah, I ate monkeys. I ate those monkeys, yeah.
We've got time for a little celebration?
Yep.
A little time for a celebration? Venice. So if you're in Venice, you know, I get fed up with these same celebrations, the bus tour, and, you know, and they take the cup round on the bus around the city. If you're in Venice, and Isabel, this is for you as well, if you're in Venice and you get promoted to Serie A and you're not going to do a bus tour, what are you going to do the tour on?
A gondola.
Correct.
There
Have a look at this. This is Venezia, who have been promoted
a few gondolas.
to Serie A. They were promoted on Sunday, so this is yesterday in the middle of Venice. Look at that. Isn't that beautiful?
Actually, there aren't. Oh, there is a gondola just on the right. I was thinking they're water taxis.
They play in Venice.
They play in Venice, yeah.
See,
it's water polo.
I would just think, I was going to think that. Just your ball going into the canal all the time.
Look at that Rialto Bridge there.
Oh, stunning.
Look at the celebrations. It's beautiful,
but
isn't it?
only the one gondola.
It is the joy of all of that. That's nice. It's nice to celebrate.
I love Venice.
And it makes a nice chance.
I've never been, Isabel.
You never been to Venice?
No.
Oh, Eamonn, you would love it.
Well, a lot of people say to me, it's full of rats.
No, never saw a single rat.
Well, this is what I hear from people, and it's too touristy.
That's true.
Yeah.
You can't move. So unless you turn up in Venice about 4 o'clock in the morning, maybe in the middle of the winter, then...
But there are some very nice hotels.
Are there?
Very, very nice hotels, and you wouldn't need to go far because the ones you'd probably stay in are very near all the action. So you could have...
The action?
And then, well, you know, where San Marco Square is, where all the pianists are performing live music, the masks, the goodness sake, boys. Have some decorum.
All right.
Gosh.
Right.
So we'll go to Gibraltar, then we'll go to Venice, and then we'll go and find some action.
Boys,
okay. Isabel can come with us as well.
Thank you, my friend.
Right,
see you again shortly.
Stay with us.
Thank you.
Lowering the tone there. Stay with us.
myself.
Claire Muldoon and Emma Burnell are here to take us through what is making the news. And let me tell you, there's pretty much one face on the front of every single newspaper we'll show you in a moment.
And it's not mine, for once.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. On the M6 in Cheshire, 3 out of 4 lanes are closed northbound after an accident between junctions 18 and 19 from the Middlewich and Holmes Chapel turn to Knutsford. There are 5 lorries involved in the accident with the queues towards there. In Wrexham, the A483 is closed southbound from junction 6 at the Gresford interchange to junction 4 at Coed Poeth for an investigation. On the A1M in Hertfordshire, there's a lane closed northbound again today for emergency barrier repairs between junctions 6 and 7 from Welwyn Garden City towards Stevenage. That caused long delays during the morning rush yesterday. In London, the south side of the Hanger Lane gyratory is closed on the North Circular at Park Royal after a lorry overturned. And on the M26 in Kent, there are westbound queues towards the M25 again today because of roadworks. And that's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Weekdays from midday, we bring you the most compelling stories from across the United Kingdom.
And why it matters to you. From your doorstep to our inbox.
That's right, we want to hear from you. Good afternoon, Britain. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. GB News, Britain's election channel.
We're delighted to welcome Claire Muldoon and Emma Burnell to go through some of the stories in the papers today. Ladies, very good morning.
Yeah.
Good to
Morning.
see you.
Shall we have a quick look at the front pages just because I want to demonstrate exactly how
and then
dominated
you have some
they are.
bore of a politician
we'll
and we'll have no newspapers.
Just to show everybody, this is the Telegraph. It's quoting Nigel Farage saying, I'm back to lead the revolt. Let's take a look at the next one quickly. We have The Times also leading on Farage's return to politics, calling the move a blow to the Prime Minister. The Express vote for Farage is more likely to end up with Starmer in number 10. And The Mirror reports on what they call Sunak's election crisis.
There, we get the idea.
Yeah.
Right, finished?
Yeah, finished.
Good.
I was just trying to demonstrate the waves that were caused.
Claire, tell me about Nigel Farage and what do you think of all of this?
Right, so Farage has now come back after saying he wasn't going to stand for the Reform Party. The Reform Party had all the slides all ready to introduce him as the new leader, the new politician, the new saviour of the world and Great Britain. And then 2 hours before all of that, Farage, of course, pulled the strings on that and said, I'm not doing it. I'm going to America. I'm not doing it. Yesterday, teasing the 4 o'clock statement out as if it was, you know, the second coming of Jesus. And there he is. He's standing for
you think, Isabel, that America may have had something to do with him running?
Well, I wonder if the demise of Donald Trump's court case last week played on his mind over the weekend and whether he thought, you know, his opportunities are less obvious in the United States, or if it was just genuinely related to the people that he saw over the weekend. What I think is interesting, lots of commentary, even from the right-wing press, saying actually his standing and becoming leader could serve to kill his Brexit dream.
Well, yeah. I mean, I think, to be honest, that's the least likely part of this because... as he said, I mean, I didn't agree with an awful lot of what he said, but it does feel like the Tories aren't going to win the next election anyway. So he's taking his moment, taking his chance to really eat the Tories' lunch and prove to them that they should be more like Reform. I think that would be an electoral mistake for the Conservatives, but I'm happy to watch them make those. So I think... he likes to be in the headlines. He likes to be in the spotlight.
Well, he's good at it.
Claire's absolutely... He is incredibly good at it.
The stark contrast
but it's a very
between
calculated return.
Richard Tice, who has, you know, devoted every penny and minute to the campaign for years now,
and is now the chairman.
Aside, and the contrast when Farage took the stage yesterday, he just lit it up. Whether you like his politics or not, the man just radiates.
Claire's absolutely right. 2 weeks ago, we were talking about Farage. Now we're talking about Farage. What does Farage like? He likes to be talked about. So he's played a blinder in those terms. He doesn't look very consistent, and that might not appeal to some people, but I think, frankly...
Well, he's standing in a seat with a 23% Conservative majority at the moment, and the research and the data is there to support, and that is why he's standing, because he relies heavily on the data to say that he would get, you know, the seat comfortably. And this is his 8th time of trying to become an MP.
This is a shoe-in, it seems to be.
It seems to be this way.
Certainly all the pollsters are saying, like, any of those MRPs, they were rushed on to the millions of podcasts that I listened to yesterday to say, yeah, they think he's got a pretty comfortable chance in Clapton.
What he is, ladies, is a character, and he stands out. It's very hard to think of politicians this time round that stand out.
Exactly, that have personality, that have that something that when you walk into a room, regardless of your politics, regardless of which side you sit on the debate, you want to look at him, you want to hear what he has to say. Whether you want to or not, but you still want...
What sort of job do you think John Swinney's doing in Scotland for the SNP?
He seems to be trampling all over everything that Sturgeon has built up, everything that Hamza tried to take on.
But is that not to get votes and then when they get back in again, to go back to...
They will not get back in again. They will. The SNP are over. Independence is dead in the water. I have sat here for years saying that, and this will be the time. Unfortunately, you're dressed, Lynn, and this is
There's no hidden meaning.
Yeah, but I'm in blue there and I'm not a Tory.
Exactly.
Well, you're Reform. That blue's Reform.
Oh, God. I'll lose all the audience.
This constituency that Nigel Farage is standing in Clacton, we should say that these are those who have declared their candidacy so far.
We have Jovan Owosu-Napul for the Labour Party, Giles Watling for the Conservatives, Matthew Ben-Silem for the Lib Dems, Nigel Farage for Reform UK, Natasha Osborne for the Greens. But as Eamonn was saying, there could be some further names added to that as the deadline for candidates isn't till the end of the week. And once we've got it, we will put all of those onto our GB News website.
Excellent.
And just a reminder as well, all of those candidates have a very warm welcome onto the channel should they wish to talk to us, and we would love to talk to them about their plans in Clacton.
Anyone been to Clacton?
Apparently it's a very difficult place to get to, and I think that could be an interesting
That's part of
factor
the
in all
issue,
of this.
I think.
I think there's going to be a lot of helicopter toing and froing because, as you say, with a sort of side portion of disdain, Farage likes the cameras. But, I mean, this is where the action is. It's in London very often. So how will he balance the two demands? Well, I suppose that's the challenge.
I mean, Clacton has areas of huge deprivation, and I think that lack of accessibility is part of that.
OK, we've got to go. We'll come back, hopefully, in a moment.
Home Secretary James Cleverly. We say hello, good morning, and welcome to him, Mr Cleverly. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning.
Well, Nigel Farage in Clacton. What do you think?
Well, look, it's interesting that he's changed his mind on this. I think it wasn't that long ago where he was questioning whether he really wanted to spend every Friday listening to the people of Clacton, but he's put himself forward, that's fine. But it doesn't change the fact that a vote for reform is exactly what Keir Starmer wants people to do if they're not going to vote Labour, because Keir Starmer knows that that is massively in his benefit, and a Labour government, particularly one that has a large majority, of course, would look at taking us back into the European Union's sphere of influence, aligning ourselves with the European Union, opening our borders with free movement once again, taking the knee, all the things that I think most British people are uncomfortable with, and certainly that anyone that was thinking of voting reform, I think, would be very uncomfortable with. So, you know, that's the choice at this election between Keir Starmer ripping us off to the hard left, or Rishi Sunak with a plan to make the country better in these uncertain times.
Yeah, and those are choices that the public will have to make. What about the choices that potentially members and colleagues of the party that remain after the election will have to make, perhaps yourself included? Assuming Nigel Farage wins, and perhaps we see a situation where some of your colleagues defect, or indeed Nigel Farage decides he wants to do either a deal with the Conservatives or to try and take down the Conservatives. I just wonder what your relationship would be like with Nigel Farage. Could you work with him? Would you welcome him back into the party? Would you like to do a deal with him? I mean, Kemi Badenoch yesterday saying, not welcome, he's campaigned against us for years. Surely there's some of you are tempted to try and bring him into the fold rather than have him as a problem on the outside.
Well, hang on a second. My plan is to get Giles Watling elected. He's the Conservative candidate in Clacton. He has been a fantastic champion for the local area, and I'm going to be making sure that I support my good friend and colleague to get re-elected and continue serving. But yes, and the point I'm saying is my plan is to make that a moot point, because I intend to get Giles elected. And the broad point is that the choice. And I know this is interesting news today, but the simple fact of the matter is this election is about a simple choice. It is a choice between Keir Starmer and a Labour Party which Angela Rayner is dragging to the left, even as we speak during this general election campaign, with question marks over our nuclear deterrent.
Well, we'll speak to Labour about that.
You know, this is the leadership that took the knee whilst BLM protesters were attacking police officers in central London. And the alternative, the only credible alternative, is Rishi Sunak with a Conservative government that's committed to defending our nation, committed to defending our borders, committing to bringing down immigration. Those are the two options, and I think people who are thinking about voting reform should consider that when they go to the ballot box.
One of the things they may have to consider as well is this view by the government to put a workers' cap on foreign workers to lower the whole idea of emigration. There was like 750,000 foreign workers that we're having to deal with on this. But I put it to you, what would we do without these foreign workers?
Eamonn, that's a really good point. And the challenge we've had in the last couple of years, because of the situation immediately after COVID, a lot of people not from the UK left the UK. Some of those then came back. We had a very generous offer to Afghans and Ukrainians and people from Hong Kong who are fleeing war and persecution. So the last couple of years, the figures have been much, much, much too high, including on legal immigration. And there are some people that like that large volume of legal migration for work purposes. But what we're doing now is we're saying in the future, we will balance both the benefits of immigration, of course there are benefits, but also the cost of immigration. And those two things have not been properly dealt with together. So we are going to commission the Migration Advisory Committee to come up with advice on the right balance of benefit and cost. Then the government will set an annual cap on how many visas that we will issue, and that's why we will have complete control in a way that we weren't able to do when we were members of the European.
This, you know, if it was this simple
because until we left the European Union,
yeah, go on.
So, until we left the European Union, we didn't have full control over migration policy.
You couldn't put a cap on the numbers.
And Keir Starmer, no, we couldn't, because remember the European Union, we had free movement. And Keir Starmer's a big fan of free movement. He said so over and over again. He would like to go back to having free movement.
Correct me if I'm wrong, this cap that you're proposing
we had a very distorted
will not
set of
include the
circumstances.
634,000 foreign students that you've been permitting into the country, or seasonal workers. And there would be a separate cap for those people that we've welcomed into this country from places like Ukraine, Hong Kong and Afghanistan. So this is a tiny fraction of people that you're talking about.
So on students, you have to remember that when students come here, they study for a while, they spend money in the country, they're an export. I know it sounds a bit weird, people come into the country being an export, but they count against our export figures because they bring foreign exchange into the UK. And ultimately, at the end of their courses, they either leave or they transfer onto another visa route. Now, if they transfer, they will form part of these figures. Seasonal workers are typically only here for a couple of months during the kind of harvest time, for want of a better word. And again, they're very temporary. And when we do something, as we have done with the Ukrainian refugees fleeing Putin's brutal war, or Hong Kong Chinese who are fleeing persecution, it is right that we look at those differently. But this is the first time we're doing a proper analysis at the same time of the benefits and costs, putting a cap on the number of visas. And you compare that with the Labour Party, who Keir Starmer has said all immigration policy is inherently racist.
Mr. Cleverly.
And when you have that attitude, you know that a Labour government will have an open door policy.
But yet people seem to trust Labour more than you. You only have to see the bombshell poll that was published shortly after Rishi Sunak.
They shouldn't.
Nigel Farage, his announcement yesterday, 5 o'clock, you get this bombshell poll which sees Labour on a 194-seat majority, the biggest election victory in history. And that was before Nigel Farage had announced that he was standing. It would probably be even worse if they did the poll today. People don't trust you.
Well, I think what people will see during this campaign, I think they'll certainly see it in tonight's debates, that the Labour Party have got a complete vacuum where their policies should be. Take my portfolio, for example. Their big announcement, this border command, which they said with great fanfare, it already exists. It is commanded by a former British Army general. It works with the intelligence and security agencies, both in the UK and overseas. It coordinates the actions across the Channel. Now, either Yvette Cooper doesn't know this organisation exists, which is pretty embarrassing if she hopes to be Home Secretary, or she does know it exists and she's basically lying to the British people. Either way, it's a really, really bad look. The Labour Party do not have a plan, and if they get into government, particularly if they get into government with a big majority, they will cut a deal with the EU, which will see us receiving more people than we're sending. They will have an amnesty for those people who are already here, because they said they will scrap the Rwanda plan, and they are not going to deport people back to Iran or Afghanistan or Syria, so they will have to have a blanket amnesty, and they should be honest with the British people about that.
Home Secretary, we're out of time. Thank you very much indeed for your time this morning. Appreciate it. Thank you.
And we say good morning to Annie Shuttleworth for a look at the forecast.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good morning, welcome to your latest GB News weather update. It's going to be a fairly blustery day across northwestern areas, some more sunshine to come for these areas, but this morning the best of the sunshine is across the far southeast. Now it will cloud over here later on in the day, but it's still fairly mild out there. Elsewhere, further north and west, it's turning much colder through the day. That's as this band of cloud and rain moves away from the northwest, sinking into parts of Wales, northern England, into central parts by the middle of this afternoon as well. We could see some heavy bursts of rain in here. Now to the north of here, we've got colder air, but some sunshine and some blustery showers moving in by this afternoon. Highs of around 14 or 15 degrees in the north, closer to 20 degrees in the south and east. Now through the rest of the afternoon, that band of cloud and rain will continue to sink southwards, so it will be a fairly bright end to the day across eastern areas of Scotland, but across the northwest, that's where we've got these most frequent showers, and you can see there is some evidence of snow falling over the high ground. That's above around 800 metres in Scotland. It'll be a fairly dry end to the day across northwestern England, parts of North Wales as well, but across central parts of England and southern areas of England as well, a pretty cloudy and possibly quite a damp end to the day. Now that cloud and rain will continue its journey south and eastwards throughout tonight, so it will turn much clearer once that cloud and rain pushes away to the south and east, but it is going to turn much colder through this evening, as behind that cloud and rain we are into much colder air. So temperatures will widely dip down into the lower single figures, rurally into the mid-single figures for many towns and cities. But it will be a fairly bright start to the day on Wednesday, particularly if you are further south and east. Actually towards the north and west, it's going to be another blustery day with frequent, possibly heavy, possibly thundery showers. And again, there's a risk of some snow falling through Wednesday morning over the high ground of Scotland, above around 600 metres, which is fairly unusual for the time of year. And it's going to be a fresher day wherever you are, with temperatures struggling to get into the high teens.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. On the M6 in Cheshire, 3 out of 4 lanes are closed northbound after an accident involving 5 lorries between junctions 18 and 19 from the Middlewich and Holmes Chapel turn to Knutsford. It's taking around an hour in the queues. On the A1M in Hertfordshire, there's a lane closed northbound again today for emergency barrier repairs between junctions 6 and 7 from Welwyn Garden City towards Stevenage. That caused long delays yesterday morning. In London, the North Circular's closed northbound towards the A40 at Hanger Lane, where a lorry's overturned. The south side of the gyrator is closed, so access from other approaches also affected. On the M26 in Kent, there are westbound queues approaching the M25 again today because of roadworks. Also in Kent on the A249, there are southbound queues towards the M2 at Sittingbourne because of roadworks. And that's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
It's the Great British Summer Giveaway, and have we got a prize for you? There's a totally tax-free £15,000 in cash to make your summer spectacular. Spend that extra cash however you like. You'll also win a brand new iPhone, Apple AirPods, and if that wasn't enough, a £500 voucher to spend at your favourite UK attraction, so you can enjoy amazing days out this year. For a chance to win the iPhone, treats, and £15,000 cash, text prize to 63232. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message, or post your name and number to GB06 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 28th of June. Full terms and privacy notice at gbnews.com/win. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
A very good morning to you. Welcome to the programme. It is 7 o'clock on Tuesday, the 4th of June.
Nice to see you. This is Breakfast. Eamonn Holmes and Isabel Webster reporting for duty.
Our top story this morning, Nigel Farage has promised a political revolt as he takes over Reform and announces plans to run for Parliament in the Essex constituency of Clacton.
I'm really calling for, and what I intend to lead, is a political revolt. Yes, a revolt.
A poll blow for the Prime Minister as he turns his attention to tackling immigration to boost the Conservatives' electoral chances.
Sir Keir Starmer's in Manchester today as he warns about Britain's reliance on energy from rogue foreign states.
And as we approach the anniversary of D-Day, which is on Thursday, we're looking into the code breakers who were crucial to the success of the invasion.
And in sport this morning, in their Euro warm-up games, England beat Bosnia and Herzegovina 3-0, while Scotland won 2-0 away at Gibraltar. England cricket begin the defence of their T20 World Cup today against Scotland. And who let what slip when Emmanuel Macron met Kylian Mbappe?
Well, to the election this morning, Nigel Farage has really shaken up the campaign, announcing he's going to stand for the Reform UK party in the constituency of Clacton in Essex. He's taken over from Richard Tice as leader of the party as well.
Let's take a look back now at what the leaders got up to yesterday.
So I have decided, I've changed my mind. It's allowed, you know. It's not always a sign of weakness. It could potentially be a sign of strength. So I am going to stand in this election. I'll be launching my candidacy at midday tomorrow in the Essex seaside town of Clacton.
At the end of the day, on July 5th, one of two people will be Prime Minister, either Keir Starmer or me. A vote for anyone who's not a Conservative candidate is just a vote to put Keir Starmer in number 10.
Liberal Democrats have put health and social care front and centre of our campaign in this general election. We have a plan to tackle the cost of living, and we've been leading the campaign to end the scandal of raw sewage dumping.
That just before this election, the Tories questioned this Labour Party's commitment to national security. And I will not let that stand. The people of Britain need to know that their leaders will keep them safe, and we will.
The Equalities Act was passed over a decade ago, and what's clear today is that there's a lack of clarity in the law, and that's risking the safety of women and girls.
What the Conservatives are doing today is part of a deliberate strategy to undermine the powers of the Scottish Parliament.
Something is happening out there. There is a rejection of the political class going on in this country in a way that has not been seen in modern times.
a rejection of the political class. What way are you thinking? Has your political temperature changed over the years? Let us know your views. Get in touch with us this morning, the usual way, and that's gbnews.com/have your say.
Yeah, the Prime Minister today battling another terrible set of polls that were announced just an hour after Nigel Farage's bombshell announcement. And the way that they're trying to retake the narrative is with a new immigration cap.
So Keir Starmer will head to Manchester as he continues to flex Labour's security credentials. Today, what he's going to do is raise the alarm over our energy reliance on foreign states like Russia. Moments ago, we spoke with the Home Secretary, James Cleverly. This is what he had to say.
What we're doing now is we're saying in the future, we will balance both the benefits of immigration, of course there are benefits, but also the cost of immigration. And those two things have not been properly dealt with together.
Well, meanwhile, the Liberal Democrats will be campaigning on the need for better day-to-day care for adults in need, including the elderly and disabled.
Deputy Editor of Spiked, Fraser Myers, licking his lips on all of this. A lot to get into, but what was talked about yesterday, Mr Farage being the centre of attention.
Absolutely. I think Nigel Farage joining the race is potentially a game changer. That's really one of the few things that could shake things up in this election. We haven't seen the polls move at all over the past 2 weeks, despite a flurry of announcements from the Conservatives, an almost desperate scramble to, in a way, shore up their core votes. Perhaps this could change things. Perhaps this could make their position even worse.
Now, just explain to people why their position would be even worse with a vote to reform. And a lot of people may be naturally attracted to reform, but they're going to have to think very seriously about whether they place their vote there or not. Why?
Well, I think it's because if reform takes votes off the Tories, it means that they will lose in seats that they maybe might have won. So what the Tories are saying is that, you know, don't vote for reform because then you're gifting an even bigger majority to Labour and Keir Starmer. Now, what Nigel Farage said, almost in response, anticipating that argument yesterday, is that this election is already a foregone conclusion. Labour is already going to win. So vote with your heart. You know, vote as you vote for the country that you want to see. And, you know, interestingly, a lot of people around the country are already voting tactically precisely with the aim of getting the Tories out. So, again, that seems like a reasonable thing to do.
Interesting to me, intriguing that a lot of the right-wing press commentary today is commenting that the architect of Brexit, by putting his hat in the ring, could actually be the one that is gifting not only Keir Starmer, but Remainers, because Labour is going to be moving away from Brexit.
Well, yes, there is, of course, that danger that, you know, Labour cannot be trusted on Brexit. Keir Starmer obviously was the architect of the second referendum policy that cost Labour so many votes in the last election. We know where his sympathies lie, and he has said quite vaguely that he wants a closer relationship with Europe, but refuses to give any real detail on that. However, I mean, people might equally say, you know, well, what have the Tories done with Brexit? What has really changed? You know, they've been gifted this fabulous opportunity to change the way the economy works, to change the migration system, to break free from various kinds of rules and regulations, and they haven't done anything with it either. So, you know, Brexit potentially is a longer-term project than we might have envisioned.
What about the decision to go for a summer election? Is this proving to be the biggest mistake that Rishi Sunak's made in his career? Because had he gone for November, Nigel Farage would have been busy in America on Trump. Or do you, and also on the subject of Trump, think anything of the fact that he was convicted last week of a crime and over the weekend Nigel Farage changed his mind?
Well, certainly, I think Rishi Sunak is in a difficult position because he would have been behind anyway, and it seemed as if the polls weren't moving in his favour, even as some of the good economic news was coming out. Like, you know, he called the election on the day that inflation hit 2%. That didn't seem to change anything in his favour. It's perhaps doubtful whether, you know, a few more good economic figures and a flight to Rwanda or something really would have changed the game for Rishi Sunak. So he was going to be in trouble anyway. But he chose that election in July, in part to try and shoot Nigel Farage's fox, to essentially outwit him, to ensure that he wouldn't run, and that looked like that had worked. It hadn't actually moved.
Incidentally, we should point out that's the Lib Dems on that boat behind, photobombing Sunak yesterday.
Another small boats problem for the Prime Minister.
Very good. Very good. Right, well, that's lots of focus on Farage. We've talked briefly about this devastating poll, have we, that came out just after Farage's announcement. But I hasten to add, had the poll been conducted today, it could be even more stark after that announcement. But as it stood, 194-seat majority to Labour. Biggest election victory in history, beating Blair's 97 landslide.
Yeah, that would be an extraordinary win for the Labour Party. And, you know, obviously all polls need to be taken with a pinch of salt. It's a snapshot in time. It's not how people will vote on the day. But the methodology of this polling, these are called MRP polls for the nerds out there. But essentially, the past few elections, they have called it right. They called the 2019 election roughly right, saying that Tories would get a roughly 80-seat majority. They actually called the 2017 election right. A lot of people missed that because people thought it was so unlikely that the Tories would lose their majority. YouGov poll predicted what would happen, but was kind of ignored at the time. So really, you know, the Tories are in the danger zone now.
12 ministers look to lose their seats.
12 ministers to lose their seats, including potentially the current Chancellor, Jeremy Hunt, who has put £100,000 of his own money into fighting that seat and looks like he could still lose. So, you know, we talk a lot about the Portillo moment in 1997. Could we have 12 Portillo moments in this coming election? The scale of devastation for the Tories is extraordinary.
Fraser, thanks very much. Thank you for your analysis. Really appreciate all of that there. Nigel Farage, we were saying, standing as Reform's UK candidate in Clacton. There you have on your screen a full list of those who have declared their candidacy in the constituency so far.
Yeah, Joe Van.
And we would also say that there is an open invite for any of those contenders to take part on our show, and they can come at any stage. OK.
So the names of them, which we need to read out for people listening on the radio for legal reasons, are Jovan Owusu-Napul for the Labour Party, Giles Watling for the Conservative Party, Matthew Ben-Silem for the Lib Dems, and Natasha Osborne for the Greens.
OK. The deadline isn't until later this week or something, so you can have hundreds more entering there if they so wish to do that. Right, the time is now 11 minutes past 7, and we're going to concentrate now on the 80th anniversary of D-Day, which is on Thursday. So ahead of official events in Portsmouth and Normandy over the next 2 days, GB News has been speaking to veterans and remembering those who fought for our freedom.
Well, this morning we can speak to our reporter Sophie Reaper, who joins us from Omaha Beach, one of the 5 beaches in the Normandy landings, and our GB News Home and Security Editor Mark White, who's also in Normandy, I believe, for us today. Good morning. Oh, in fact, he's in Portsmouth, we should say. Yes, you were at the Nerve Centre. Well, it was all orchestrated. We're going to start with you, though, Sophie, first of all. A very different day, weather-wise, to what was experienced 80 years ago. It looks very beautiful and calm there this morning. Paint a picture of where you are.
Absolutely, the sun is shining down on us here on Omaha Beach. So, as you say, to set the scene, if you were to travel a little bit down the coastline this way, you would reach Utah Beach, and between Utah and Omaha, that was where the American troops would have landed. If you'd travel that way a little bit, you'd come to Juno Beach, which was where the Canadians landed, as well as Sword and Gold Beach, which was where our very own British troops would have landed all those years ago. Now, standing here today, as you say, it's incredibly different conditions to what would have been on the 6th of June 1944. In fact, D-Day was originally supposed to take place on the 5th of June, but because of the adverse weather conditions, President Eisenhower made the call to delay that, and after consulting with meteorologists, it was then decided that it would happen on the 6th of June instead. Now, as we know, our troops across these 5 beaches would have landed here, crossing the channel from Portsmouth. They would have then made their way up the beach, and you can't quite see this in the shot, but they would have made their way up to the hills in that direction, where machine machine gun fire would have been coming at them. It's incredibly poignant standing here almost 80 years to the day and just thinking about and considering what those troops would have had to sacrifice on that day for our freedom. And I know over the coming days we'll be bringing you much more here in Normandy.
Okay, Sophie, thanks very much. Well, let's cross to Portsmouth and speak to Mark there and just paint a picture of exactly what was going on as all of the Allied forces were amassing ahead of this huge invasion that was kept secret but so carefully planned for so many months.
Well, it was the biggest amphibious operation the world has ever seen, or indeed will ever see now. 195,000 Royal Navy personnel alone involved in this. 7,000 vessels that left the UK heading for Normandy. 1,200 of those were actually warships, so some significant vessels amongst those. I'll just give you a quick shot down there at the moment. I don't know if you can see actually down there. That's one of the minesweeper vessels that is going to be escorting Brittany Ferries vessel out here in about an hour's time from now, carrying a group of veterans who arrived at Southwark House not far from here yesterday. Southwark House is important because that is where the D-Day operation was controlled from once our order was given for this armada to leave heading for the shores of Normandy. I've been speaking to a couple of those veterans, including 99-year-old Peter Smoothie. Now, he was on board one of the landing ships carrying 28 tanks as it made its way to Juno Beach, and he told me about coming under fire as they came in to unload these tanks at that beach.
And the bullets and the shells fly over the top of you. So you go, well, that one missed me. That one hasn't got my name on it. That was the comment that most people made.
Well, as I say, he was one of 195,000 Royal Naval personnel. Another was George Chandler. He was on one of the motor torpedo boats that was helping guard the fleet from German attack. And he was up near Omaha Beach, where, of course, the Americans were landing in force. And he spoke of the absolutely horrifying scenes that he witnessed while he was offshore, seeing those American troops landing. This is what George said.
Unfortunately, we had to die outside and watch this going on, and it wasn't very nice to actually watch these kids. And they were kids, they were young. I was 19 at the time. These kids were younger than me, I know they were. And we've all heard of the brash American. Boy, oh boy, were we pleased they were like that. Every time I talk to somebody about D-Day, I'm there. I'm there on D-Day watching these young American Rangers tried to get into the... Some of them were killed before they even got off their assault craft.
Well, it was an absolute privilege speaking to George Chandler, almost blind, very deaf, but clearly recalling those events of 80 years ago with such clarity. Well, George and a group of other veterans will be on board that Brittany Ferries vessel as it leaves Portsmouth Harbour in about an hour's time.
Thanks, Mark. Thank you very much indeed. And it makes you think of just what those veterans had to face when they stormed those beaches, not only dealing with the natural environment around them, but the bombardments that were coming down upon them, and the defences that were rigged around them.
And the young age. I mean, the veterans that we've been speaking to, presumably the youngest would be sort of 98. They'd have been 18 at the time, 22, something like that, up to or thereabouts average age, so sort of 102 years old. There's not going to be many more commemorations, are there, where we're going to have people who were actually there. So important to hear their stories.
The best reenactment of anything like that in the cinematic screen has been the first 15 minutes of Saving Private Ryan, which just is as close as I suppose you could get to the horrors of all that these men had to face. Anna Riley spoke to a Yorkshire D-Day veteran about his part in that moment in history.
Say it was a Boy Scouts adventure to me as an 18-year-old. Never been on the beach before, never been on a ship before.
98-year-old veteran Ken Cook shared his memories of D-Day at a special event in Harrogate. As a former Green Howards private, Ken was part of an armada of vessels carrying more than 150,000 Allied soldiers to France. And he was just a teenager when his regiment landed on Gold Beach in Normandy.
Everybody was telling us, the officers and the sergeants, corporals, they said, get off the beach, lads, quick, because there's some more stuff coming behind us. And they had to get onto the beach as well. All our equipment and tanks and whatever, artillery, they were following up behind us, so we had to get out of the way and get into the countryside and make as much ground as we could on that first day.
Never in military history has any campaign been so long anticipated, so much discussed, so thoroughly organised as the Second Front.
Ken survived that harrowing first day, but many didn't. Around 10,000 Allied troops were either killed or injured. But their sacrifice, along with the bravery of those that lived, changed the course of history and resulted in the end of World War II.
I'm quite proud of it. I took part to get rid of the terrors that were in Germany and that, because somebody had to do it, and so we did it. We did our job, and that's it.
Ken is one of the last surviving members of York's Normandy veterans. Part of an ever-dwindling band of brothers who fought on D-Day, he's attending the 80th commemoration in France.
A very emotional occasion this time, because there's not many of us left now. So we've got to make the most of it, and, we've got to see our friends who are still over there. And that's the main reason we're going. We think it'll be the last. It might not be, depends. If I keep taking the tablets, I'll be going in 85th.
Remembering the fallen, Ken's wish is that long after he's gone, we still never forget those who gave their tomorrow for our today. Anna Riley, GB News, Harrogate.
We remember them all. Now it's time for your weather picture on this Tuesday morning, and for that we go to
Annie Shuttleworth.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good morning, welcome to your latest GB News weather update. It's going to be a fairly blustery day across northwestern areas, some more sunshine to come for these areas, but this morning the best of the sunshine is across the far southeast. Now it will cloud over here later on in the day, but it's still fairly mild out there. Elsewhere, further north and west, it's turning much colder through the day. That's as this band of cloud and rain moves away from the northwest, sinking into parts of Wales, northern England, into central parts by the middle of this afternoon as well. We could see some heavy bursts of rain in here. Now to the north of here, we've got colder air, but some sunshine and some blustery showers moving in by this afternoon. Highs of around 14 or 15 degrees in the north, closer to 20 degrees in the south and east. Now through the rest of the afternoon, that band of cloud and rain will continue to sink southwards, so it will be a fairly bright end to the day across eastern areas of Scotland, but across the northwest, that's where we've got these most frequent showers, and you can see there is some evidence of snow falling over the high ground. That's above around 800 metres in Scotland. It'll be a fairly dry end to the day across northwestern England, parts of North Wales as well, but across central parts of England and southern areas of England as well, a pretty cloudy and possibly quite a damp end to the day. Now that cloud and rain will continue its journey south and eastwards throughout tonight, so it will turn much clearer once that cloud and rain pushes away to the south and east, but it is going to turn much colder through this evening, as behind that cloud and rain we are into much colder air. So temperatures will widely dip down into the lower single figures, rurally into the mid-single figures for many towns and cities. But it will be a fairly bright start to the day on Wednesday, particularly if you are further south and east. Actually, towards the north and west, it's going to be another blustery day with frequent, possibly heavy, possibly thundery showers. And again, there's a risk of some snow falling through Wednesday morning over the high ground of Scotland, above around 600 metres, which is fairly unusual for the time of year. And it's going to be a fresher day wherever you are, with temperatures struggling to get into the high teens.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Well, in spite of the forecast, it is officially summer, and we have a brand new summer giveaway, £15,000 in cash, plus a new iPhone, AirPods and £500 to spend at the UK attraction of your choice.
And here's how you could win it.
It's the Great British Summer Giveaway, and have we got a prize for you? There's a totally tax-free £15,000 in cash to make your summer spectacular. Spend that extra cash however you like. You'll also win a brand new iPhone, Apple AirPods, and if that wasn't enough, a £500 voucher to spend at your favourite UK attraction, so you can enjoy amazing days out this year. For a chance to win the iPhone, treats and £15,000 cash, text WIN to 63232. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message, or post your name and number to GB06 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 28th of June. Full terms and privacy notice at gbnews.com/win. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Still to come, we're going to debate whether it is acceptable for heterosexual actors to play gay characters. I'm sure this is something that keeps you awake at night, and we'll be trying to rectify it for you right after this break.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the argument. We get rid of the disrespect, and then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together, and what have we got? In my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Patrick Christie's. Every weeknight from 9, I bring you 2 hours of unmissable, explosive debate and headline-grabbing interviews. What impact has that had?
We got death threats and the bomb threat and so on.
Our job is to do what's in the best interest of our country.
You made my argument for me. My guests and I tackle the issues that really matter, with a sharp take on every story.
I'm hearing it up and down the country. That was a beginning, not an end.
Patrick Christie's tonight from 9 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Weekdays from midday, we bring you the most compelling stories from across the United Kingdom.
And why it matters to you. From your doorstep to our inbox.
That's right, we want to hear from you. Good afternoon, Britain. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, GB News brings you accurate reporting of the day's topical agenda.
When the news breaks, wherever and whenever it's happening,
we'll be there.
This is GB News,
the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Neil Oliver, every Sunday night at 6 p.m. on GB News. And if an hour is not nearly enough for you, go to gbnews.com for special extended episodes online every Friday at 9 p.m, where we can truly get into the nitty-gritty of what's going on. GB News, Britain's news channel.
GB News is Britain's election channel.
And when the big stories break, we're tackling them on Britain's newsroom. When we disagree, and we disagree a lot, it's even livelier than normal.
We don't disagree that much.
We do.
His comedy, though, is revolting. I knew her, and unlike you.
That explains Beverly Turner's temperament.
It's a bit frosty in here, isn't it?
He'll have one of me one day.
For dartball practice. Britain's Newsroom on GB News. Weekdays, 9:30 a.m.
GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
It's true. You're not wrong. No one will be cancelled. Lovely.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michael Portillo. This is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
There's a woman called Rebel Wilson. She's a comedian, she's an actress, and she's become the latest Hollywood star to weigh in on the debate on whether straight actors can play gay characters.
Well, she believes it's total nonsense that only gay actors can play gay characters.
So, is it okay to play gay? TV personality and former singer Kerry Katona says yes, and she agrees with Rebel. Whereas journalist and broadcaster and openly gay man Benjamin Butterworth says only gay actors should play gay roles. Now, explain to me why, Benjamin, you believe that is the... I mean, you fervently believe that is the case.
It's a while since I've been introduced as openly gay. That's an old one. But yeah, I think it's not that a straight person is incapable of playing a gay role. Clearly, it's possible. But I think there is a real benefit to having somebody who has that lived experience of being a gay person, that authenticity. When it comes to representing minority roles, like someone who's disabled or an ethnic minority, a person who's lived that in real life can bring a lot to acting. And of course, you know, when you hear the best actors in the world talk about how they get ready for a role, they'll often talk about how they'll try and immerse themselves in the story they're telling. And gay people have that. You know, people like Russell T Davies, the incredible writer who is a gay man and tells many gay stories, has said that when he's been telling those stories, especially when it involves things like the HIV pandemic in the 1980s and 90s, that it is beneficial to have people who live through that, because the audience believe them and trust them with the stories of gay people's lives.
OK, so Kerry, it's a question of believing, looking at an actor and believing they're authentic in the part.
I think acting is for every variety of person. That's the whole point of going into acting, to try and learn new roles and inject yourself into a new character. It's like, let's look at Tom Hanks, you know, in Philadelphia. I completely believed, I think he won an Oscar for it, Matthew McConaughey. I completely believed him. And when there's a film as big as this, my personal opinion is, it's whoever the best actor is, not whether they're gay or straight or a woman or a man. I think whoever the best actor is should play that role, because my eldest daughter, she's gone into acting, and the fun with acting is you get to try all these different roles. I mean, for instance, a serial killer, Jeffrey Dahmer. Should we really got a serial killer to have played him? No. And I'm sure a lot of gay people would like to play straight roles as well, because that's the fun of acting. You get to express yourself and get to completely outrageous and new characters, because it's escapism as well for the actor.
That's
and
an
it's
interesting point. Yeah, let's put that to Benjamin Butterworth. Then, are you excluding all gay people from playing straight roles because we have to have the lived experience of straight people, or is it only the minority element that particularly applies in this situation?
Well, look, you know, most gay people were straight acting for half their lives, right? So acting straight or pretending to be straight is something that gay people are rather good at, generally speaking. But the point is that this is about the fact that it's a minority role. You know, it's not to say that a gay person can't play a straight role. I think that's fine. But the fact is that we know that gay people sometimes don't get the opportunities that heterosexual people do. You know, Kerry mentions Tom Hanks there, for example. example. Now, you have to ask, why was it until pretty recently in Hollywood and in big budget dramas that the very few gay stories that were told in films and at that level at Hollywood were all played by straight actors? You know, no gay people until quite recent in film history got the chance to have that roles. And that's because they thought a gay person wouldn't sell.
Sorry, can I also, like I just said before, it also goes down to the actor themselves. Now, a gay actor can maybe not even, I don't know, embrace themselves into a scene that the straight guy might be able to do so much more better. For me, it's down to the talent, it's down to what you can come with it. I don't think you should be judged on your sexuality or your gender. I think it's purely down to the talent. Now, there's phenomenal gay actors out there and phenomenal straight actors out there, but that doesn't mean that just because you're gay, you're going to get that gay role, because depending on the storyline, you might not be able to immerse yourself into it as much as somebody who is straight. And I don't think that's separating things from each other. I think the one with the most talent should get the job. That's personally my opinion, because otherwise you're alienating people. I think we
But the fact is that, you know, a gay person knows what it's like to be straight, essentially, because we live in a world where heterosexuality is obviously the dominant culture.
Can I just interrupt? I mean,
storyline.
Have you guys watched The Morning Show? I mean, the number of times Eamonn and I are asked, have you watched The Morning Show? They don't know what it's like to be breakfast TV presenters, but they're acting. It's their job. And we had Simon Callow on. He's a gay actor, famous from 4 Weddings and a Funeral. He's been in Harry Potter as well. He said, for goodness sake, don't diminish us to being about who we have sex with. I can play a straight role, I can play a gay role, and straight guys should have the same opportunities.
I think what Benjamin's saying is that the opportunities often don't exist, and if the opportunities are available, then they should go to genuine people, Benjamin?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, for example, you know, it's a different example, but people in wheelchairs and with those kind of disabilities, I think these days you would only see someone who has that disability in real life would probably get those roles, because people find it a bit uncomfortable to know that someone was pretending to have a serious disability like that. You know, that is progress, because someone in a wheelchair who's an actor is very limited in the opportunities
which was phenomenal, which is testing an actor at their best abilities. The whole point of acting is that's what acting is all about. It's testing your abilities. It's a skill. They do their depth research. That is acting. Daniel Day-Lewis in My Left Foot was phenomenal. Look at the Stephen Hawkins film with
Daniel Day-Lewis has done it very well.
You can push yourself out your boundaries. That's what acting is all about. Sorry.
Well, there we go. I think we're going to have to agree to disagree, Benjamin. I know you're shaking your head, but we have to draw a line under it. I don't think you're going to change your mind. I'm interested to know what people at home think this morning, but thank you, Kerry Katona and Benjamin Butterworth, for putting your cases passionately.
Who were both acting themselves this morning.
She said she loves you.
I know she does.
Good. I was checking.
Thought
you might reciprocate some.
No, that's...
So beautiful, Isabel. I love you, Eamonn.
And thank you for all your kind messages, Kerry. Appreciate it. Thank you very much. OK. We're going to take a break there. We've got Paul Coit acting himself with all the latest
And I
sport.
love him.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. The M62 in West Yorkshire is partly blocked westbound by an accident between junctions 23 and 22 from Huddersfield to Rishworth Moor, causing queues. On the M6 in Cheshire, 3 out of 4 lanes are closed northbound after an accident between junctions 18 and 19 from the A54 Middlewich and Holmes Chapelton to Knutsford. It's taking around an hour and 50 minutes to get through the queues towards there. In London, the North Circular's closed northbound up onto the A40 at Hanger Lane, where a lorry's overturned. The south side of the gyratory is closed. There are queues from Park Royal. On the M26 in Kent, there are westbound queues getting onto the M25 again today because of roadworks. And also in Kent on the A249, there are southbound queues towards the M2 at the Stockley roundabout in Sittingbourne because of roadworks. That's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
This is GB News, and we are Britain's election channel.
This vote may seem to be about the politicians and the media, but it's actually about you. We won't forget that.
Join us up and down the country as we follow every moment together.
More than ever, it's important to hear all sides
as you make your decision in the run-up to polling day.
This is GB News,
the People's Channel. Britain's election channel.
GB News is Britain's election channel.
And when the big stories break, we're tackling them on Britain's newsroom. When we disagree, and we disagree a lot, it's even livelier than normal.
We don't disagree that much.
We do.
His comedy, though, is revolting. I knew her, unlike you.
That explains Beverly Turner's temperament.
It's a bit frosty in here, isn't it?
He'll have one of me one day.
For dartball practice.
Britain's newsroom on GB News. Weekdays, 9:30 a.m.
GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the arguments. We get rid of the disrespect. And then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together and what have we got, in my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Patrick Christys. Every weeknight from 9, I bring you 2 hours of unmissable, explosive debate and headline-grabbing interviews. What impact has that had?
We got death threats and the bomb threats on.
Our job is to do what's in the best interest of our country.
You made my argument for me.
My guest and I tackle the issues that really matter with a sharp take on every story.
I'm hearing it up and down the country. That was a beginning, not an end.
Patrick Christys tonight from 9 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Now, we start the sport with a diplomatic incident this morning. Paul Coit is going to tell us this because this involves the French president and Kylian Mbappe.
Yes, exactly. President Macron was talking to Kylian Mbappe. It was at the training centre, ready for the Euros. So he's gone along. And the thing is, there's all the talk about that we spoke about yesterday that Kylian Mbappe is going to move to Real Madrid. But still nothing had been announced.
OK.
So then we get, this is yesterday, around lunchtime, French time. This is what happened. I think we can have the exchange. Now, there we are. Look, there's Macron on the right.
Listen, oh, bonjour, mon ami.
Well, what he actually says, Macron actually says, this is the translation. I've always wanted to, you know, when you see the translations, the sound dips and then the voice goes.
Yes.
Kylian, how are you? Feeling well? Mbappe says, I'm well. Macron then says, so it's announced today? And Mbappe says, tonight.
Tonight's the night.
Shaking hands, laughing, and then Macron goes, very well. So he's saying that the announcement for Real Madrid would be tonight. Nobody knew about this.
Yes,
so Macron lets it slip. Honestly, you think he would be able to keep a secret slightly better, wouldn't you?
Yes.
So anyway, then it's gone out to the world press, and then eventually, yes, indeed, that evening...
They announced it.
Ce soir, Mbappe announces that he has gone to Real Madrid.
That's the way to do it.
It is the way to do it, but you know what? It's not a bad little deal. I think it's £128 million signing on fee. That's a little bonus there.
Yeah, because he's out of contract.
That's right, he's a free agent.
He's a free agent, and he gets 128 million quid over how many years? 3 years?
I think it's about 3 or 4 years.
Yeah.
They space it out because they don't want to give it a lump sum. But I think he can afford it. He'll be OK. 12 million a year.
Be all right.
12 million a year.
On top of his 128 million.
And, more importantly, his rights of anything with his name on, etc. He has a percentage of that as well.
But what does Real Madrid then get out of it? You look at it, OK, you're a player on the pitch, but surely they must have some sort of investment in the guy that they plan to make money from.
Oh, yeah, they'll make money from him. Of course they will. But
still, on the basis of all that.
But really, they just see that he's this amazing player that's come along. Because there was talk about, when he was playing at Paris Saint-Germain, is that the owners didn't want to sell to Real Madrid, even though huge amounts of money were given to them, because they would lose face. The owners did not look as if they say, we don't need to sell, we can do whatever we want.
They've lost a ton of money now by him running out his contract.
Exactly,
so there we go.
But they've got a ton load of money, so they don't have to worry about that ton.
Now, two big international... No, well, they're friendly, warm-up.
They are, they're warm.
Matter of fact, they weren't big at all. One of them was Scotland against Gibraltar. And there's more people in the studio this morning than there are in Gibraltar.
There are, yeah.
More or less.
Do you think, are we being a bit unfair towards Gibraltar?
There's more monkeys in Gibraltar than there are people.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
I don't like those monkeys.
I
don't know, I have to say.
Have you been up the rock?
They've got very big teeth and big bums. They do.
It sounds like someone I know.
Why are you looking at me?
I'm not looking Germany.
Unbelievable.
No, I'm not talking about you.
Anyway.
That is downright rude. I don't know where camera 3 is. I've got no idea. Oh, over there. Rude.
Rude, but truthful. So Scotland against Gibraltar. Scotland win 2-0. I'm not impressed by that.
I'm not impressed by that either, but don't worry because the Euros are coming up. I mean, they've got to play Germany, Scotland, the very first game of the Euros, which is week on Friday.
Yeah.
So that's going to be the very first game. And so the warm-up is going to play Gibraltar. Yeah, I think it's just a little... It's a training session. It's the same as England versus Bosnia.
Yeah.
They're pretty much glorified training
But England get 3 goals, and that's what they want. They want to be seen as a scoring machine.
And it's about looking at the players. They play Iceland on Friday, and then the announcement for the final 26 players, which is going to go from 33 to 26, will be made. So that's Friday evening.
Thank you, my friend.
All teeth
Appreciate
and
it.
bum, that's me. Thank you very much.
Unbelievable.
You're unbelievable.
I'm not talking.
It was him, not me.
I can believe that as well. Well, never mind. I've got Claire Muldoon and Emma Burnell to talk to in just a moment. All the papers coming up. Don't go anywhere.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
It's true. You're not wrong. No one will be cancelled. Lovely.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain. Weekdays from midday.
The Princess of Wales has reportedly been out and about, enjoying days out with her family, while she continues to undergo her treatment for cancer.
And Buckingham Palace says they have been inundated with tens of thousands of get well soon cards and gifts for the princess.
Yes, I can imagine so. Now we're joined by former royal correspondent at The Sun, Charles Ray. Charles, how do they know she's been out and about with her family?
Good afternoon, Tom and Emily. It's interesting, yes. I mean, how do they know that she's been out and about? No pictures have been seen of the princess out and about. And I'm surprised that with all the people who've got camera phones, that she has been that out and about, that we haven't seen her. But anyway, we have to accept that she is out and about. She's with her family. But the palace are making it quite clear, pointing out that this should not be confused with her returning to work anytime soon. There are even some suggestions that she won't return to work probably until the autumn, and there's one suggestion that may not even be till next year. Like her father-in-law, she's not sitting at home with her feet up watching daytime TV. She is actually working. She's actually doing things.
And yet, this is a difficult time, of course, for the royal family to navigate everything. The King has cancer, the Princess of Wales has cancer, and we're in the middle of a general election campaign where the royal family have to be very, very careful about where they go, what they do and what they say.
Sure. And as you quite rightly say, Tom, I mean, things have had to be cancelled in any case. So during this next 6 weeks, we are not going to be seeing any members of the royal family doing as much as they possibly can or can do prior to a general election.
The People's Channel.
Every Saturday, 10 till 12, we'll bring you all of the news that you need to know. We'll also remind you that there is so much to smile about.
It's my favourite time of the week. I get to relax, enjoy some light-hearted stories, and let Ellie teach me about fashion too.
That's Saturday Morning Live, every Saturday, 10 till 12.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/your say. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
We've got Claire, we've got Emma. They've got the papers in front of them, and one of the big things that they're all talking about today is Prince Andrew, which he's not looking the best. I know he's out of the public eye. I mean, and I do wonder, Emma.
On the front of the Mail.
Sorry,
I was
what?
just saying he's on the front of the Mail if we want to show people at home. Yeah.
Yeah, he's well. You can't really see the detail, but anyway, he doesn't look too well. My point I was going to make was the pressure that this man is under, and I suppose we don't appreciate that, Claire.
Well, you know, it's so much for the slimmed-down monarchy. It doesn't seem to be existing. So, yeah, he's clinging on to the perks. Andrew enjoys a ride at Windsor as dispute over home rumbles on. But the truth of the matter is we actually don't know what's going on. We don't know what's been reported, really, between him and his brother. So we can only assume or read into the fact that will Charles evict him from, you know, the cottage on the Windsor estate?
My point is that physically, this man's in his mid-60s.
Is that all he is?
Yeah, suddenly he is...
He's got a paunch.
Yeah, there's a few pictures inside and whatever, you get the idea of this. But he's not looking the best, and just one wonders about his sort of mental health, his mental state of mind in all of this, Emma.
Look, I'm the last person in the world who can comment on somebody else's body shape, let's face it. But in my own journey, I would say that mental health and weight are very, very closely connected. But also, I mean, he is 60. He's probably slowing down a bit.
64.
Your metabolism does change.
His brother, King Charles, isn't showing the same problems.
But he's also, I mean, he's not a working royal, so he may be doing considerably less than he used to.
He's not of the same build as Edward, as Charles,
Philip.
as who?
Well, Prince Philip, his father.
Yeah.
Yeah, but let's face it, if you look at my sister, she's tall, thin and blonde. I just want to kill her most days.
Yeah, my brother's tall and skinny. Well, I like to, you know what I like to see? I like to see a man on a horse. Not enough men ride horses as a hobby. Nice thing to do on a Monday afternoon whilst the rest of us are earning a crust.
Glad you put that into context.
Yeah. Well, that's just, you know, I didn't think, gosh, he looks chubby. I thought, gosh, wouldn't it be nice to be riding a horse rather than
Possibly
earning
not
a living?
for the horse right now.
So we were talking about this earlier, the number of children who read and the number of children who enjoy writing has dropped to a record low. I think when you look at the figures, they're not as drastic as the headline would suggest, but...
It's still worrying, though, Eamonn,
Why?
that you've got 23% of children between the ages of 8 and 18 not wanting to or not recognising the importance of writing in their free time. This creativity going forward will be stifled. Where will the books be from the future? Will it all be AI generated? Gosh, what a life, what an unoriginal life for these kids, for the bedtime stories. And we all know how important that is as a parent
the
to read to your
concentration
children.
factor as well. I mean, you look at anything online and the attention factor is 30 seconds or something before people switch off from it. So maybe that is a problem.
It is a problem. They've identified that within the research, and they've said that children have got the memories now and the attention spans of goldfish, basically. I'm paraphrasing slightly here and adding my extra spin in it. But this is hugely important, and it's very, very sad. The head of the National Literacy Trust has actually said that children have got no idea of why they are not doing it and why they should be doing it. And how can you teach a child to take time out to write? And thankfully, girls are better at writing than boys. And I think there's an emotional quotient in this. And there's an emotional impact of children writing, especially young girls.
Did you write a diary when you were young?
Oh, gosh, yes.
Yeah, can you imagine reading that now?
Well,
I wrote you know,
I think I'd still be writing the same things.
Yeah. Writing's wonderful. I find it really enjoyable writing still today. I mean, you write plays and all sorts of things.
Yeah. And
that's how enjoyable Isabel finds this. She writes a column for the Sunday Express, and every week I get, we're going to write this bloody column, we're going to do this.
There's a great deal of difference.
She enjoys
But I do actually, I always say afterwards, I enjoyed that.
There's a writing to a deadline, which can feel very pressurised, and there's writing for pleasure and fun. Absolutely. Although I do love the Douglas Adams quote, which is something like, I love deadlines. I love the noise they make as they whistle past.
Yeah. Now, the whistling, the Conservatives may have to whistle for donations or money. There's big donors are deciding, we're not going to waste money donating to them because they're not going to win.
Yeah, so 3 donors who are, I believe, unnamed in this Financial Times story, but who between them have given £5 million to the Conservative Party over the year. Well, I was wondering if one of them was one of the ones that was in the headlines recently, but we don't know. So they've the three of them together commissioned £15,000 worth of private polling to see whether they thought that they would be throwing good money after bad by giving the Conservatives money during the election campaign, and it seems that that was the outcome of that polling because they are not now donating.
OK. Claire, 40-year mortgages.
Well, they're saying that the 40-year mortgage, the rise in it, is actually going to be the downfall of my generation, older generation and a slightly younger generation of pensions. And they're saying that it puts the future of young buyers at risk. I don't actually think this is actually going to be true. I think this will actually, where now baby boomers have made money in the equity in their home because they've traditionally not moved, and they've been able to pass that on to their children, I think this will actually stifle the hotbed of property rises, and I think it might help it going forward. So, I mean, why on earth banks are giving out 40-year mortgages in the first place is another thing, and trying to get a mortgage is incredibly difficult in this time, and with with everything in place, interest rates, wages never being higher, but lots of people not being able to show how much they're earning due to zero-hour contracts or freelance work. It is just so difficult out there. And with landlords now selling up, the rental market's going to be squeezed. And I just hope that people, well, that'll make it'll be easier for people then to buy flats and houses once these landlords sell up. But in the meantime, where do the renters go?
In 30 seconds, Emma, a worry about flying and drinking.
Yeah, it appears that you are more likely to have a heart attack on a plane. There are the oxygen levels drop in those enclosed cabins, and that's something that will raise it up. And then if you drink, it raises your heart rate, so you are more likely to have a heart attack. So they're trying to curb drinking on planes. I suspect the people who would be most happy about that are the cabin crew, who frankly find dealing with drunks the hardest part of their job.
Yeah, very true, very true. Ladies, thank you very much indeed. See you again in about 45 minutes' time.
Time now for a check on the weather, and don't get too excited. We've seen the best of it in the last few days. It's all going downhill. Here's Annie Shuttleworth.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good morning, welcome to your latest GB News weather update. It's going to be a fairly blustery day across northwestern areas, some more sunshine to come for these areas, but this morning the best of the sunshine is across the far southeast. Now it will cloud over here later on in the day, but it's still fairly mild out there. Elsewhere, further north and west, it's turning much colder through the day. That's as this band of cloud and rain moves away from the northwest, sinking into parts of Wales, northern England, into central parts by the middle of this afternoon as well. We could see some heavy bursts of rain in here. Now to the north of here, we've got colder air, but some sunshine and some blustery showers moving in by this afternoon. Highs of around 14 or 15 degrees in the north, closer to 20 degrees in the south and east. Now through the rest of the afternoon, that band of cloud and rain will continue to sink southwards, so it will be a fairly bright end to the day across eastern areas of Scotland, but across the northwest, that's where we've got these most frequent showers, and you can see there is some evidence of snow falling over the high ground. That's above around 800 metres in Scotland. It'll be a fairly dry end to the day across northwestern England, parts of North Wales as well, but across central parts of England and southern areas of England as well, a pretty cloudy and possibly quite a damp end to the day. Now that cloud and rain will continue its journey south and eastwards throughout tonight, so it will turn much clearer once that cloud and rain pushes away to the south and east, but it is going to turn much colder through this evening, as behind that cloud and rain we are into much colder air. So temperatures will widely dip down into the lower single figures, rurally into the mid-single figures for many towns and cities. But it will be a fairly bright start to the day on Wednesday, particularly if you are further south and east. Actually towards the north and west, it's going to be another blustery day with frequent, possibly heavy, possibly thundery showers. And again, there's a risk of some snow falling through Wednesday morning over the high ground of Scotland, above around 600 metres, which is fairly unusual for the time of year. And it's going to be a fresher day wherever you are, with temperatures struggling to get into the high teens.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
The latest GB News travel. Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. On the M62 in West Yorkshire, there's a lane closed each way after an accident between junctions 23 and 22 between Huddersfield and Rishworth Moor. It's taking around half an hour in queues from junction 24 at Ainley Top. On the M6 in Cheshire, 3 out of 4 lanes are closed northbound after an accident between junctions 18 and 19 from Middlewich and Holmes Chapel turn to Knutsford. There are long delays there with queues from junction 17 at Sandbach. In London, the North Circular is closed northbound up onto the A40 at Hanger Lane, where a lorry's overturned. There are queues from Park Royal. The south side of the Doratory is closed there with limited access on other approaches too. The M11 in Essex, there are northbound queues after traffic was stopped because of an accident between junctions 6 and 7 from the M25 to Harlow. And in South Wales on the A470, there's a lane closed southbound for investigation between Nantgarw and the Taffswell interchange, causing queues from the Upper Boat Junction. That's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
We've got summer sewn up with an incredible trio of treats, and you could win them. First, there's a fabulous £15,000 in tax-free cash to ensure this summer is special. What would you spend that on? Next, you'll also receive the latest iPhone 15 and a set of Apple AirPods. And finally, £500 to spend at your favourite UK attraction. Fun in the sun could be on us. For a chance to win the iPhone, treats and £15,000 cash, text prize to 63232. Text costs £2 plus 1 standard network rate message, or post your name and number to GB06 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 28th of June. Full terms and privacy notice at gbnews.com/win. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
GB News brings you accurate reporting of the day's topical agenda.
When the news breaks, wherever and whenever it's happening,
we'll be there.
This is GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking,
this is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Weekdays from midday, we bring you the most compelling stories from across the United Kingdom.
And why it matters to you. From your doorstep to our inbox.
That's right, we want to hear from you. Good afternoon, Britain. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello there, very good to see you. 8 o'clock, Tuesday the 4th of June. Breakfast here on GB News with Eamonn Holmes and Isabel Webster.
Thanks for your company. Leading the programme, Nigel Farage has promised a political revolt as he's taken over reform and announced plans to run for Parliament in the Essex constituency of Clacton.
Bombshell poll blow for the PM as he turns his attention to tackling immigration to try and boost the Conservatives' electoral chances.
Sir Keir Starmer's in Manchester as he warns about Britain's reliance on energy from rogue foreign states.
And as we approach the anniversary of D-Day on Thursday, we are looking into the code breakers who were crucial in the success of the invasion.
And in the sport, in their Euros warm-up games, England beat Bosnia and Herzegovina 3-0, while Scotland won 2-0. We won't have a go because at least they won away in Gibraltar. Leicester's manager jumped ship to Chelsea, and England begin in cricket the defence of their T20 World Cup against Scotland.
So let's get underway with the election campaign trail, and the Prime Minister is battling what pollsters say could be Labour's biggest win for 100 years.
Well, in an attempt to win back disillusioned voters, Sunak's promised to cap annual migration.
Now, earlier we spoke with the Home Secretary, James Cleverly. This is what he had to say.
What we're doing now is we're saying in the future, we will balance both the benefits of immigration, of course there are benefits, but also the cost of immigration. And those two things have not been properly dealt with together.
Keir Starmer, he's in Manchester today to talk about plans to introduce Great British Energy. And he's doing that, and he warns of the threat to security from depending on foreign energy sources.
Meanwhile, the Liberal Democrats will be campaigning for better day-to-day care for vulnerable adults, including the elderly and the disabled.
Academic and professor of politics Matt Goodwin joins us now to take a look at what is also a GB News People's Poll. Tell us the results of this one, Matt.
Well, good morning, Eamonn. Great to be with you both. It's bad news for Rishi Sunak, Eamonn. We've got Labour on 46% of the vote, we've got the Conservatives on 22%, and we've got the Reform Party on 10%. Now, remember, viewers, this poll was taken just before Nigel Farage made that bombshell announcement. But even now we can see, again, one of those huge Labour leads, 24 points this time around. What does this mean, Eamonn? It means that were this replicated at a general election, you'd be looking at a Labour majority of well in excess of 300 seats. The Conservatives would likely fall to somewhere around 100, 150 seats. It would be sort of 1997 style wipeout. But as I say, remember, this was just a few hours before Nigel Farage made that announcement.
And just after it, we had the YouGov poll with another broadcaster that had a 194-seat majority, but also the same applies to that. If that was conducted today, presumably it would be worse. Just explain how the GB News People's Poll is conducted and the sample and the science behind it.
Yeah, so we, like all pollsters, we take as close to a representative sample of British adults as we can get. So we get those people from online consumer panels. We ask them a series of questions about the country, about issues, and then we weight that sample so it's representative of the wider British population. And what's interesting is if you look at all of the polls at the moment, they are broadly telling the same story. There are one or two exceptions. There's a bit of a debate among pollsters at the moment about, is the Conservative vote share as low as 20, 21, 22%, or is it actually a little bit higher than that as some of those undecided voters come back? But the key point is everybody is showing Labour leads big enough for a Labour majority come July the 4th.
When you add all the results together, it would hardly even, if you combine everyone else, they hardly even get ahead of Labour. That's how emphatic it is.
Well, I think that's right. But look, I mean, there are a few other interesting things in this poll, Eamonn. One is, as I think your viewers just saw, we also asked 2019 Conservatives, who would you like to replace Rishi Sunak were these numbers to actually happen on the July 4th, in which case we assume Rishi Sunak will step down or have to make way for somebody else. The top choice in this hypothetical scenario, Nigel Farage, followed by Penny Mordaunt. You know, again, this is more evidence, Eamonn, that actually the Conservative Parliamentary Party is out of step with this new Conservative electorate that the party's got after Brexit, who are much more on board with some of those issues like slashing migration, strengthening the borders, you know, getting tough on you know, kind of woke ideology, if you want to call it that. And so what we're seeing, I think, is not just a party that's heading for a defeat in the election. We're actually looking at a party that is heading into a prolonged internal battle over what it is, what kind of Conservative Party it is. So I suspect the election will quickly be followed by this big leadership election over the summer, which will define really the future of conservatism in this country.
Yeah, and also all to play for in terms of the third party. I mean, you were initially talking about Reform on 10%, Lib Dems on 8%, but it's the Lib Dems, I believe, who are expected to quadruple their seats in Parliament, and Reform still in low single digits, and that's all due to the nature of our voting system. This, you know, whilst this gives a vote share, it's not proportional representation in this country.
Well, absolutely right. Remember, Reform need to be really above 15%, 15 to 18% in the polls to really have a shot at winning one or two seats. For example, Clacton, where Nigel Farage is now standing, and Boston and Skegness, where Richard Tice is standing. Unlike the Lib Dems, of course, they're starting from a much lower base. The Lib Dems are often in a stronger position in many seats. And of course, in 2019, they didn't do anywhere nearly as badly. Reform weren't really on the map at all in 2019. So it's going to be much more difficult for Reform to cut through and win seats. But I think if you look at what Nigel Farage was saying yesterday, what I thought was interesting is he said it's not just about winning seats at the 2024 general election. It's also about how many seats they finish second in as part of this 5 or 6 year plan to reshape the Conservative Party. And that's where you begin to see, you know, the landscape of British politics really changing, because over the next 5, 6 years, reform will obviously potentially be presenting a much bigger problem for the Conservative Party than they might do on July the 4th, even if they get millions of votes and a couple of seats.
Well, we'll leave it there, Matt. Fascinating analysis there and predictions that are coming in. Thank you for juggling the figures there and letting us see what they are. We go now to Pat McFadden. We say good morning, Pat. Pat is Labour's national campaign coordinator. Good news for you this morning, Pat, when you look at these polls.
Well, I ignore them, Eamonn, and I tell the Labour Party staff and volunteers and all our candidates to ignore them, because one simple fact is true. No one has voted in this election. Not a single seat has been won or lost, and it's for the people to decide. So no matter what the polls say, we're going to keep on working to win the people's support at the election on the 4th of July. And the question will be, do people want to have 5 more years of what they've had for the past 14, or is it time for a change with Labour? That remains the question, whatever the polls say.
Let's go back to 4 o'clock yesterday afternoon when this emergency announcement was made by Nigel Farage. I would pay to have been a fly on the wall to see Starmer's reaction, your reaction. Has Keir Starmer just become the luckiest politician in history?
Our reaction was just get on with the job, keep going. It's an election. Anyone's entitled to stand. Anyone's entitled to be a candidate if they put themselves forward. It makes no difference to us. We're just going to keep on. Our focus is on the voters that we need to win in all these battleground seats. That's been our focus in recent years. We're offering them a changed Labour Party. We think we've got a good programme to turn the page on the Conservative years, and that's what we're going to keep talking about between now and polling day.
What's hitting home for you, Pat? What's scoring the points? What's getting people to say we're going to vote Labour? Is it Labour Party policy, or is it how bad the Conservatives are?
Well, people know how bad the Conservatives are, but it's not just about that. It's about putting forward a good programme for change. And I think on what we're saying about economic stability and growth and cutting NHS waiting lists and waiting times and getting more qualified teachers in schools and cracking down on antisocial behaviour and having cheaper, cleaner energy and secure borders, all of these things are appealing to voters. They speak to the big challenges facing the country, and that's what you should do if you are asking people to put their trust in you to govern the country after polling day.
Yeah.
So it's about our policies as well as what people think about the government.
And can people trust Labour? I'm thinking about yesterday with the big announcement on defence, the triple lock for the nuclear deterrent, and just an hour after Sir Keir Starmer, your leader, comes out trying to convince us that the whole shadow cabinet is unified on this issue. Angela Rayner, who voted against renewing Trident in just 2016, said, I haven't changed my views on that. It's a bit embarrassing, isn't it?
No, because she made clear she supports the policy of keeping Trident, as every member of the shadow cabinet does. She said this very clearly last night. That's her position, it's Keir's position, it's the Labour Party position. We will keep the nuclear deterrent. We will have continuous at-sea deterrence. We'll make sure we have the 4 new boats built at Barrow, and we'll make sure that the future upgrades are done too, so that this can keep the country safe for decades to come.
What about J.K. Rowling? I don't know if you saw her tweet to Alistair Campbell yesterday. There was lots of comment, of course, as the Tories were talking about the Equalities Act yesterday. And J.K. Rowling accused Labour of indifference to women and of being complacent.
I haven't followed everything on Twitter. I've got enormous respect for J.K. Rowling. I've read her books to my children, but I haven't been following every twist and turn on Twitter. You don't really have time to do that on the campaign most of the time. But what I would say is we want to have equality between men and women, to respect women-only spaces. That's part of the Equality Act. It was our legislation which did that, and we absolutely stand by that.
Today, Pat, Keir Starmer is going to talk about energy security and how our energy policies today are a matter of security. How important is this? How vital is this? And what are you going to do about it?
It's very important because the experience of the last couple of years showed two things. One, that when we're vulnerable to global oil and gas markets, it can be very expensive for individual households, and everybody watching knows what's happened to their energy bills in recent years. But secondly, it's a vulnerability for the country. We can't just think about energy policy as energy policy anymore. It's got to be thought about as part of our national security. So this drive for homegrown renewable power will be cheaper for people in the long run, because renewable power is now cheaper than oil and gas. So it will take money off people's bills, but it's also a matter of national security, because the chances of another price spike are out there. We live in a very unstable world. And when the next one comes, we want to be in a better, stronger place to face it than we were 2 years ago.
So that will mean
take a more insulated homes. It won't mean getting rid of gas storage facilities.
But Pat, you're not ready just to flick a switch and make this happen. This is going to take a lot of time, and that's the danger. It may well be cheaper, but it's not available.
Well, that's why you've got to go for it, and you've got to do this with energy and with determination. And we had Sir Patrick Vallance talk about this the other day, and I think he made a great point when he said, if the country doesn't take this seriously and really go for it, what will happen is other countries will come up with the solutions and we'll end up buying them. Now, I don't want that fate for the United Kingdom. I want us to be in the forefront of this. It's both in our consumers' interest, because the bills will come down, but also in our national interest. And one of the points I'd make is that when you're applying to be the government of the country, looking after the future is an essential task, preparing Britain for the future. And we have been left vulnerable by 14 years of the Conservatives on the energy front, because they abandoned home insulation, they closed down our gas storage, and they did nothing to bring forward the new nuclear that we really need for more energy independence.
Just frack.
The future is not more fossil fuels. The future is cleaner, greener power. It'll be cheaper, we can have it at home, and it will leave us less dependent on these international oil and gas markets.
Cleaner, cheaper, greener. What do you think of what Pat McFadden's had to say this morning? The intention's very good, but what about the reality? What do you think, folks? Well, that's what Labour are going to try and convince everybody of today. Pat, appreciate your time. Thank you very much indeed for the explanations. Thank you.
Right, we're going to find out what the Liberal Democrats are up to today. Let's speak to our political correspondent, Catherine Forster, who's on the campaign trail with them. Tell us more. They've been a bit quiet of late, apart from a photo bombing behind the Prime Minister yesterday.
I'm sorry to disappoint you, Eamonn and Isabel. I am, in fact, in Westminster, which is very, very strange, because last week I was in the South Coast, Wales, all the rest of it, but I am here today. So the Liberal Democrats, we got used to seeing Sir Ed Davey standing in rivers talking about sewage. But the other thing that the Liberal Democrats are very passionate about is social care. And it's very personal to Sir Ed Davey, because he has a severely disabled son. He took Saturday off from campaigning to look after him. He also had to be a carer for his very ill mother when he was young. So this is very personal to him. Now, the Lib Dems are pledging today free personal care for anybody who needs it, whether that be somebody that's elderly or disabled or whatever. They are saying that over 12,500 hospital beds in England alone are being taken up by people who are fit to be discharged but can't be discharged because there isn't the social care in place for them. We know there is a huge social care crisis in this country, and it's an issue that successive governments have basically just been putting in the too hard basket for a very long time. So the Liberal Democrats are saying that this would cost some £2.7 billion per year, but they're saying that it would save the NHS £3 billion a year, and that it would be paid for by reversing the cuts that the Conservatives have given to the big banks since 2016. They're also pledging to pay carers £2 an hour above the minimum wage, because at the moment we have a situation that you can get a job in a supermarket and earn more than being a carer, which is a very demanding job. So I think it's worth saying this is a point of difference with the Liberal Democrats. And, you know, in 2019, when Boris Johnson got that big majority, he stood outside Downing Street in his opening speech and he said, we will fix social care with a plan that we have prepared. Of course, we haven't seen it. Successive governments too. This is something that the Lib Dems feel is very important and they want to champion.
An incredibly personal mission for Sir Ed, as you say, with his son John, can't walk, only limited speech, and I believe his wife Emily diagnosed with multiple sclerosis as well. It reminds me of when David Cameron was coming into office with his severely handicapped son Ivan. It often gives these politicians a deeply personal motivation. Catherine, thank you very much indeed for now. We'll leave you. Thanks.
The 80th anniversary of D-Day, Thursday, and the commemorations are beginning ahead of official events in Portsmouth and Normandy over the next 2 days.
Well, over the last week, GB News has been speaking to veterans and remembering those who fought for our freedom.
Joining us this morning, GB News reporter Sophie Reaper from Arromanches in Normandy, and GB News Home and Security editor Mark White. And Mark, you're in Portsmouth. What's happening there?
Well, the Brittany Ferries vessel that is carrying a group of about 30 veterans across to Normandy has just left its berth here at Portsmouth Harbour, so probably within the next 5 minutes or so it will come into view here as it makes its way up the channel and out into the English Channel itself. It'll be escorted by a British Royal Navy minesweeper, HMS Cadstock, and also 2 smaller patrol boats and a World War II era motor patrol boat, along with some other vessels that will be escorting that ferry as it heads out into the English Channel for the trip across to Normandy. And at 1 o'clock, in a very poignant ceremony this afternoon, there will be a wreath laying just off the coast of Normandy. I've had the privilege yesterday of speaking to some of the veterans who arrived here at Southwark House, which was the sort of nerve centre for that D-Day landing operation. It's not too far from here. One of those I spoke to was Peter Smoothie, who was on a landing craft, a tank landing craft carrying 28 tanks that landed on Juno Beach, and he told me about coming under fire as they moved in to land those tanks.
And the bullets and the shells fly over the top of you. So you go, well, that one missed me. That one hasn't got my name on it. That was the comment that most people made.
So within the next few minutes, guys, hopefully we'll see that Brittany ferry.
OK, thanks very much, Mark. Appreciate it. Well, let's cross to Sophie then. Bring us up to speed on where you are.
Well, good morning once again to you both. We've now moved along the coastline and we're here on Arromanches, and joining me to tell me a little bit about what's going on is Adrian Cox. Now, I know you're responsible for organising everything happening here at Arromanches for the British over the coming days. Do you want to tell me a little bit about what's going to be happening here?
It's a very important moment, obviously, the 80th anniversary. We're hugely proud to have somewhere around 20 veterans coming to our tribute to the veterans on the 6th of June at 4 o'clock, which is 5 o'clock Brit time, so don't miss it. Arromanches, we're always the last event of the day, so it's not really a military parade, but there's military aspects. It's much more an opportunity to show emotion, give each other a hug, and just say thank you to the veterans who given so much, and their courage in actually coming back here this year. We've got veterans 102, 104 years old. The effort and the determination is absolutely amazing.
Obviously, we were speaking earlier that this is most likely going to be the last big anniversary we have of D-Day with veterans who fought there. How does that feel going into that, knowing this could be the last big one that we have?
It's a very interesting question. We are at a point where the way that we keep the remembrance going, we promise, we stand there at the cenotaph and we say, we shall remember them. Actually, we've got to change the wording to, they shall never be forgotten. And our job now is to formulate the commemorations into something which is actually interesting, understandable for the next generation, and that's our primary job.
Of course, commemoration is incredibly important, and the respects that we show to our veterans. But there is also a celebration side to these events, isn't there?
Absolutely, absolutely. And with Arromanches being the last major event of the day on the 6th of June, it has been for years and years and years. In fact, the very first commemoration was held on the beach here in 1945. As soon as it was safe to put on a commemoration, the first one was here. So this is very much the veterans' home. We have a wonderful mayor here who is absolutely committed to the veterans. Arromanches is probably the only place you'll find French flags, Brit flags, French flags, Brit flags all the way around. It is the most pro-British town anywhere in Europe. And the atmosphere is absolutely wonderful. All of the veterans are treated like royalty. They're all treated like members of the family, and they're absolutely loved. And we've got a lot of people. There's about 75% of the population here over 75. So they were young people, or very young people, or had first generation experiences from grandma or granddad. So for them, it's a very personal thing, but wrapped up in this huge, wonderful sense of emotion.
Thank you so much for joining us. Fabulous to speak to you today. We're going to be bringing you live reports from Arromanches for the next few hours as the build-up continues to the 80th anniversary of D-Day.
Stuff, Sophie, thank you. Well, we will return now to Portsmouth, where those ferries have been getting underway, and we can see the pictures of people there gathering on the shores there, watching the boats depart on this historic visit. Tell us more, Mark.
Well, what you're seeing is one of the tugs that's actually got the fire hoses. There's two tugs actually with the fire hoses either side, just as a mark of respect for the ferry and the veterans coming out. I can see that ferry actually coming into shot. You can't quite see it from where we are yet because there's a bunch of people basically that would be in shot, but within the next 60 seconds or so, that ferry should come into shot. The ferry that's carrying 30 of those veterans for that trip across to Normandy, where Sophie Reaper is today, and ahead of them, just coming into shot now, as well as one of the tugs, you can see the Royal Naval Minesweeper HMS Catastock. There are two what we call P2000 patrol vessels as well, Archer and Trumpeter, who are providing the escort, and World War II era motor torpedo boat, which is there as well, Neptune. Medusa, I'm told, that is there as well, which will be clearly a reminder, a poignant reminder for those veterans on board this vessel. They are going to have a few days of commemorations here, which, you know, would be fairly tiring for anybody. But when you're in your late 90s, some of them over 100, it is a very tiring experience, but they want to be here. But poignantly, of course, the numbers dwindle all the time. The last time we had a significant D-Day commemoration, which was the 75th anniversary, the Ministry of Defence estimated that there were some 200 veterans who were still alive, D-Day veterans, and now they put that number of British D-Day veterans at fewer than 100. And really, as far as the organisers are concerned, they believe that this will be the last significant D-Day commemoration where we can expect veterans to be able to attend. We're just hearing some horns in the distance there, as hopefully you can now see that Brittany... the horns.
We've got the combination there of the bagpipes playing and that horn echoing in the background. Mark, we lost you, your audio for just a moment at the end, but you were talking about the mark of respect there.
Yes, indeed. The veterans really wanted to be here for this commemoration, even though, you know, many of them are wheelchair bound now. And they are, you know, very frail. I mean, of course they are. They're, you know, pushing 100. They were 18, 19, 20-year-old lads at the time when they took part. Some were in the Royal Navy Armada. It was the biggest maritime operation the world has ever seen or will ever see. 7,000 vessels were involved. 1,200 of those were classified as warships. Other vessels, of course, including the hundreds of thousands of landing ships that took part in the operation to land on the first day. 150,000 troops on the beaches, the 5 beaches of Normandy that the Allied forces were attacking to gain a foothold. So you can see the Brittany ferries, they're now clearly into shot, and just ahead of them, if Lucia can show you as well, you can see that that flotilla, those escort vessels, the P2000 patrol vessels, torpedo boats that have come out, a sailing yacht that has come out as well. All there to guide this ferry out into the English Channel for that journey of several hours across to the shores of Normandy. And as I say, there will be that very poignant moment at 1 o'clock today when a wreath will be laid on the sea just off Normandy, a time for reflection, one of a number of moments where the people on that ferry and the others who gathered both in Portsmouth and other locations in the UK and on the northern coast of France will be able to reflect on these momentous events some 80 years ago. But you can hear now the horns of those vessels paying their respects to the ferry. And we'll just leave you with a final shot of that Brittany's ferry as it heads up this main central channel at Portsmouth Harbour, heading out into the English Channel.
Thank you very much indeed. Those live pictures coming in from Portsmouth. Right, it's officially summer and we've got a brand new summer giveaway. Here it is.
It's the Great British Summer Giveaway, and have we got a prize for you? There's a totally tax-free £15,000 in cash to make your summer spectacular. Spend that extra cash however you like. You'll also win a brand new iPhone, Apple AirPods, and if that wasn't enough, a £500 voucher to spend at your favourite UK attraction, so you can enjoy amazing days out this year. For a chance to win the iPhone, treats, and £15,000 cash, text WIN to 63232. Text costs £2 plus 1 standard network rate message. Or post your name and number to GB06 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 28th of June. Full terms and privacy notice at gbnews.com/win. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Right, we've now got royal biographer Angela Levin in the studio. We're always delighted to have her because we're going to talk about David Beckham and a reinvention, Angela, of David Beckham within the royal family. Now, there was a few years ago, he was on track to get a knighthood and whatever. It didn't happen. He expressed his disdain at this. This all went public and he was very much ostracised from the royal family. Now, King Charles loves him. Loves them.
Yes, they've got lots in common now. They both love having bees and making their own honey. And David's moved very closely to Highgrove, where the king lives, so they're very easy to talk about. But also, he's been looking for somebody who would help running his charity, the king's charity. And he's a working man who actually has come up from the bottom and actually done it all himself.
Yes. Now, the King's Charity now, so it used to be the Prince's Trust, but that's now William now looks after that, does he? Or it's been renamed?
No, it's just been renamed to King.
OK,
yeah, that's
right.
all. And actually, it's wonderful because the King invited me up to Scotland to see where it happens. And at this amazing house, it's got A to Z of what you would like to do, whether it's painting, whether it's cooking, and all the people who would have, a lot of them have been sleeping on the street, not been able to get a job, go there and actually try and make something of themselves. Not just that, but he then employs them for 6-9 months, because he said if you just do a course, you don't want anything. So Beckham would be marvellous at helping these people. Doing all that.
Lots of speculation about whether a knighthood is in the offing then. I mean, I think I was just Googling why it's taken so long, and there was some question about tax avoidance back in 2013, which he was later exonerated for. And he was recommended a number of years ago for a knighthood. It hasn't happened yet. Do you think the mood music is changing
yes.
slightly?
I mean, he now dresses in country clothes.
Yes.
You know, the brown and very smart. And that's good. And Victoria's there too. Just let me tell you one thing about Victoria. Prince Harry met her just after his mother died, when his father had to go to South Africa. And they were the Spice Girls. And he met her. And there's pictures of him holding her hand, right? And he said to me, when I was interviewing him, that it was the best day of his life. And so they invited them to Highgrove, and he said to me, that was the second best day of my life. So that there was a lot of friendship between Victoria and the boys, because obviously liking football and all that. And but then they helped when they moved into Kensington Palace. Victoria helped them with makeup, well, certainly Meghan, and clothes and all those things. And then it got nasty. That's what happened. Yes. He was going to go to Invictus Games. He was asked by Harry if he would go, and he did. And but Harry wouldn't talk to him at all. He flew all the way to Sydney, but nothing happened. But then it was leaked that he and his wife were leaking all the material, saying nasty things about them, and they got very upset.
Sussexes,
This is the Sussexes, yes.
Right.
And that's what made him absolutely furious. They were invited to the wedding, but not to the dinner. And as there were not very many friends there, he thought that was a terrible slight. And so that's why they backed off and stopped being friendly with them.
Talking about the reinvention of David Beckham, I was just reading in the Mail, what's his name, Ephraim Hardcastle. He's claiming that actually it was Prince Andrew that Bex was all pally with, and that actually Prince Andrew had organised a birthday party for 6-year-old Harper Beckham in Buckingham Palace. But since the friendships got all frosty, and David has turned his attention to the King.
Yeah, that was, yes, Fergie did all that without actually asking for permission. So the royal family were absolutely furious about that. So, but I think it was really that they just felt they're now not getting on very well because of being told that they're doing things which they're not doing, and so it was very difficult. And they didn't invite him to Brooklyn and Nicole's wedding either. So that's all
But
over.
now we've got a reinvention of relations between David Beckham and the King and royalty, and obviously that would include Victoria as well.
Yes. Yes, it will. But the thing about him is that he's very determined and he's always done a job absolutely to the best he can. So he's somebody who's worthwhile having, you know, among the people. There will be other people who are helping running the charity, but he's the first. So it's
You're all for it?
I think I am, really, because he does work hard and he's had a lot of nasty things said about him early on when he missed a goal and everybody booed him and all that sort of thing. And he's overcome that. And I think when you see people who do that and don't bear a grudge forever, I think it's very, very important.
I would say this about David. He is genuinely a nice person. You know, whatever people may see as his flaws or his excesses or whatever it is, he is a nice person to deal with, and that goes a long way.
He's also a good father, isn't he? He loves his children, and particularly his daughter, you know, very keen on her, and he's there and he'll cook for them and he looks after them. So he's got a lot going for him, and I think that's just really what the King needs. And also someone who's funny. He's very funny and cracks jokes, and so he can cheer the King up, really.
And he's handsome. Come on, you've missed out the most.
Not now.
Just looking at these pictures, and they're such a glamorous pair, aren't they?
I don't think now very much, but I think he is. Sorry, but I don't, all this sort of stuff all over his arms and everything.
Oh, Angela.
Old-fashioned.
Well, on that note, we'll say thank you very much. See you again
very much
soon.
indeed. Angela Levin there.
Right, stay with us. Paul Coit is back after this quick break with all the sport.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. On the M62 in West Yorkshire, there's a lane closed each way for repairs after an accident between junctions 23 and 22 between Huddersfield and Rushworth Moor. It's taking around 40 minutes in queues from junction 25 at Brighouse. On the M6 in Cheshire, 3 out of 4 lanes are closed northbound after an accident between junctions 18 and 19 from the A54 Middlewich and Holmes Chapelton to Knutsford. There are queues from junction 17 at Sandbach. Now on the M6 through Staffordshire and the West Midlands, there are accidents on both sides of the motorway. Southbound, there's a lane closed between junctions 11 and 10 from Cannock to the Walsall and Wolverhampton turn. Northbound, there are 2 lanes closed because of an accident along that stretch with delays in both directions. And there are delays of up to 40 minutes to trains into and out of Euston Station in London because of headlight problems. And that's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
GB News is Britain's election channel.
And when the big stories break, we're tackling them on Britain's newsroom. When we disagree, and we disagree a lot, it's even livelier than normal.
We don't disagree that much.
We do.
His comedy, though, is revolting. I knew her, unlike you.
That explains Beverly Turner's temperament.
It's a bit frothy in here, isn't it?
He'll have one of me one day.
For dartball practice.
Britain's newsroom on GB News. Weekdays, 9:30 a.m.
GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the arguments. We get rid of the disrespect. And then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together and what have we got, in my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Neil Oliver, every Sunday night at 6 p.m. on GB News. And if an hour is not nearly enough for you, go to gbnews.com for special extended episodes online every Friday at 9 p.m, where we can truly get into the nitty-gritty of what's going on. GB News, Britain's news channel.
In the GB newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, GB News brings you accurate reporting of the day's topical agenda.
When the news breaks, wherever and whenever it's happening,
we'll be there.
This is GB News,
the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/your say. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
So in sport, England beat Bosnia-Herzegovina last night. Gibraltar lost to Scotland 2-0. The latest in the T20 Cricket World Cup, Paul?
T20 Cricket World Cup begins for England today. They play Scotland, which is going to be in Barbados. But the thing is, the thing runs for ages because there's 5 teams in each group and then you'll get to the Super 8s and then, anyway, it goes on for ages. So it's only really towards the end of the month is when we've got to start getting excited. But we are the holders. So the T20, they play Scotland today. And that gets underway in Barbados, in Bridgetown.
Now, here's something you will never have seen. This is a cat playing golf.
This is Isabel's, OK? This is just... would you like to explain this?
Well, it's just my contribution to sport. I was just, you know, spooling through the internet and I sent it to you.
OK, well, let's have a look, shall we? Shall we have a look? This is... There you go.
Look at that kitten.
That's very annoying, isn't it?
I think it's the cutest thing I've ever seen.
I don't know what I would have done if I'd had like a 7-iron there.
What would the rule...
No, I wouldn't. I'm not the cat.
Coity!
Never in a million years.
What would the rule be in the game if an animal, a squirrel, a cat, a dog, whatever, interfered with your ball?
Well, I think it would... No, I'm not even going to go there. So I think probably what the problem would be is that the ruling would be if an animal got hold of the ball and moved it towards the green, then that would count. Because if it happens with the crowd, if the ball goes into the crowd and then it comes back out, it's a natural occurrence.
Okay.
So, yeah, so there you go.
Well, that one didn't help him at all.
Let's watch it one more time because it's so sweet.
Oh, again. Here we go again. Here we're going to see the cat again.
Oh, dear.
Forget it.
Don't worry.
Right,
We've got to move on.
Sporting birthdays today.
OK, let's do some birthdays for you. Who's this? We've got 3 big names. One of them you may not recognise. The first one, please. Who is this? How old are they today? There you go. Ben Stokes.
27.
England cricket captain, not playing in the T20s, decided not to.
Yeah, I agree with Isabel. I think he's this late 20s, yeah.
33.
Oh,
33.
To you, Mr.
How about
Stokes.
this? Now, I don't, if you remember, well, this man you'll remember. There we are. 1981, the Grand National on Alden-Eaty had a film made about him called Champions. Bob Champion.
Yeah.
How old is Bob today?
I thought Bob was dead.
No, Bob's alive.
He had cancer, though,
He did. Well, that was the whole story. And then he beat cancer, won the Grand National.
78.
I'd say
78 for Bob Champion.
75.
76.
Ah.
Very good.
Yeah.
Final tennis one. Now, do you remember this woman? She was young, Andrea Jaeger. She turned pro at 14. She was a French Open finalist in 82, Wimbledon finalist in 1983. She retired at 19. Do you know what she does now?
No.
Have a look. This is what Andrea Jaeger... She's a nun.
She's a nun.
She's a nun. So she turned her back on the tennis world for the cloth. How old is Andrea Jaeger today? So 82. She was the French Open finalist and she retired at 19.
In 82, I'm going to say...
Do the math.
She's 62.
62, you're in the ballpark. So... this is
60.
59 today.
Oh!
In her 60th year.
Brilliant.
Andrea Jaeger.
Brilliant. Good. Very entertaining stuff, Paul. Appreciate that. Thank you very much indeed. Back with the papers right after this.
This is GB News and we are Britain's election channel.
This vote may seem to be about the politicians in the media, but actually it's about you.
And we won't forget that.
Join us up and down the country as we follow every moment together.
More than ever, it's important to hear
all sides
as you make your decision ahead of polling day.
We're here for you.
This is GB News,
the People's Channel.
Britain's election channel.
Mark Dolan Tonight. Weekends from 9 p.m.
England's new patron saint, Gary Lineker, a man holier and more virtuous than Mother Teresa and Gandhi combined, strikes again. Never one to miss the chance of some moral posturing, goal-hanging PR opportunist Lineker has spoken out about tonight's Champions League final. He tweeted the following: "This is the first time I'll be cheering for Real Madrid in a Champions League final." The German side Dortmund have signed a 3-year sponsorship deal with weapons manufacturer Rheinmetall. Now, Gary Lineker is not a stupid person. Following a stellar career on the pitch, it was a storied transition to broadcasting. And let me tell you, he's worth every penny of that £1.3 million a year of licence fee payers' cash to introduce football clips. So how did it escape the attention of this bright man that our democracies and our freedoms are protected and defended by the weapons produced like companies such as Rheinmetall? In fact, we should big up, not cancel, Rheinmetall, who have produced some of the armaments which are now helping Ukraine. Well, I'm very confused because I thought Gary Lineker was very supportive of Ukraine and their battle for survival. But now he wants to take their weapons away. I'm very, very confused. After all, they're going to need weapons with which to defend themselves. They can't fight by sending off tweets like Gary does. Now, many people love Gary Lineker. He has over 8 million followers on Twitter. This idol of the progressive left battled HMRC in court to reduce his tax bill by almost £5 million. This latest Lineker rant about war is weapons-grade nonsense. Sorry, Gary, but you're firing blanks.
The People's Channel.
I'm Patrick Christie's. Every weeknight from 9, I bring you 2 hours of unmissable, explosive debate and headline-grabbing interviews. What impact has that had?
We got death threats in the bomb threat zone.
Our job is to do what's in the best interest of our country.
You made my argument for me.
My guest and I tackle the issues that really matter with a sharp take on every story.
I'm hearing it up and down the country. That was a beginning, not an end.
Patrick Christie's tonight from 9 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
We're always big supporters of farmers on the programme, but maybe not today. Emma Burnell joins us now, and Claire Muldoon. Claire, what have you got to say on this?
Well, I'm really quite concerned on 2 levels. Young farmers treat women like toys is the headline here in the Times. But
it's a great generalisation, isn't it?
Well, is it, Eamonn? That's the thing, because if you look deeply into it, you'll find that actually the girls that are attending these events...
This is young farmer club events.
Yeah, it's de rigueur for them to go and get groped and get called and get catcalled, etc., etc. But they're putting up with it. And there's a young girl quoted as saying, well, if I go to a club, I expect it. But if I go to a young farmer's do, I know it's going to happen. And that sad realisation of this level of misogyny, because that's what it is ridiculous. And young girls, I think, need to be empowered against this. They cannot think that this is normal behaviour to be treated like this. It's awful. It's really, really, really bad.
T-shirts with slogans including, for the sporting birds, I can tighten the choke.
Yeah.
And other ones with the word SL.T written on their arms.
On their arms.
References to free oral sex written on their foreheads.
But wait a minute. Is this... How widespread is this? This is what I'm trying to get. I mean...
Well, they're quoting this big event that happened.
It was one event.
Yeah, but it's kind of the big event in the young farmers' calendar, isn't it? I mean, one of the things that worries me about this and this whole story is that we're framing young farmers as male. And the women who attend as, you know, their guests, rather than farmers in their own rights. I think, you know, it's really important that we remember that farming is, you know, not something that is only open to boys. And if these events feel like this for the women attending, how much more is that going to put young women off going into this really vital industry?
Well, there's such a shortage of farmers, you know, young women, as well as having to run a home and bring up children as well, have to drive tractors and sow seeds and feed animals.
Well, they could share both of those duties with the dads.
It just seems to me that the farmers are treating
all livestock the same and bringing down sex and
That's a big accusation, Claire.
of women.
So we'd like to know people's view on that. If you are a farmer, let us know and we'll reflect that before the end of the programme. Black Lace, they sang a famous song, Agadoo, ooh, ooh, Agadoo. But the lad Colin Gibb, who was a member of Black Lace, has sadly died.
So, yeah, it's very sad news. He died at age 70, just a few days before he was due to retire, apparently, which is, very sad because obviously he would have been hoping for a lot more time. But I think it's worth remembering the gaiety that Black Lace have brought to the nation. I won't mention one of their songs, which is a little not appropriate for this time in the morning, but frankly, anyone of my age can probably still do all the moves that Agadoo.
Come on. Put your money where the mouth is.
Do. Push pineapple, shake the tree. Agadoo, do. Push pineapple, ground coffee.
Superb.
Well done. Very good. Did they do any other songs, Emma?
Oh, Superman, which has far more complicated moves that I won't go into here. But they had another song, which, again, I will not give you the title of this morning at this time of the hour. But you can find it on Spotify.
Wonderful.
Claire, very shortly we're going to the weather. Explain to us just how bad summer is so far.
Well, is it that bad? I mean, after growing up in Scotland, is it really?
Yeah.
And coming from a man from Belfast?
Yes.
This weather is tropical.
But you come from Belfast or from Glasgow or whatever, that we expect bad weather.
Yes.
But I now live in London and the weather is as bad as it is in Belfast.
I'm still wearing my winter coat every morning when I come in.
My roses are overjoyed, though. I have to say, my roses are blooming like never before.
Well, there
Do you know the other problem, though? Apparently, we are losing birds because of mosquitoes and they're biting them and the hornet is back.
But we're
so
only
this
losing
cooler weather...
blackbirds.
Huh?
We're only losing blackbirds.
Don't say only.
But what does a blackbird do?
Amen.
It sings in the dead of night.
What does a blackbird do? Like, what does a wasp do?
Well, no, you kill wasps.
Irrelevant and they
wasps are
deserve to die.
pollinators as well.
No, they're not, Isabel.
Yes, they are.
No, you kill a wasp, you save a bee.
Wasps are pollinators.
No, get the farmers to kill them.
So basically, where are we at now with the weather?
Oh, we've had the warmest spring on record since 1980s.
The mildest May, wasn't it?
The mildest May.
Yes,
and they
but
say flaming
that doesn't
June.
include sunshine.
No, it doesn't.
It's cloudy and warm.
It's horrible, muggy. Isn't it? It's muggy. Muggy.
Wet.
And moist or wet.
And how does the weather affect your mood, Emma? I would say it affects mine quite strongly.
I'm not affected so much by the weather as I am by less daylight. So I definitely get that seasonal affected disorder.
Less blue skies.
But
less
I love to
sunshine.
walk, and so it is more depressing when it's raining and you have to put your anorak up and you can't look around you. So, yeah, that does affect me quite a lot, I think.
Yeah.
Can we talk about Rishi Sunak's Nando order, Emma? We've got 30 seconds to end on a spicy note. Tell us what he went for.
I mean, the man goes for broccoli at Nando's. I think that tells you all you need to know. I mean, I'm sure it's good for you, but who goes to Nando's for a healthy meal?
Is it the most boring Nando order of all time?
It does feel that way a little bit.
Broccoli. Didn't even know they sold it. There we go.
Chips and broccoli.
Ladies, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you,
Claire and Emma. Thank you. Now we're going to give you the weather update, the very latest for this month of June, with Annie Shuttleworth.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good morning, welcome to your latest GB News weather update. It's going to be a fairly blustery day across northwestern areas. Some more sunshine to come for these areas, but this morning the best of the sunshine is across the far southeast. Now it will cloud over here later on in the day, but it's still fairly mild out there. Elsewhere, further north and west, it's turning much colder through the day. That's as this band of cloud and rain moves away from the northwest, sinking into parts of Wales, northern England, into central parts by the middle of this afternoon as well. We could see some heavy bursts of rain in here. Now to the north of here, we've got colder air, but some sunshine and some blustery showers moving in by this afternoon. Highs of around 14 or 15 degrees in the north, closer to 20 degrees in the south and east. Now through the rest of the afternoon, that band of cloud and rain will continue to sink southwards, so it will be a fairly bright end to the day across eastern areas of Scotland, but across the northwest, that's where we've got these most frequent showers, and you can see there is some evidence of snow falling over the high ground. That's above around 800 metres in Scotland.
It'll be a fairly dry end of the day across northwestern England, parts of North Wales as well, but across central parts of England and southern areas of England as well, a pretty cloudy and possibly quite a damp end to the day. Now that cloud and rain will continue its journey south and eastwards throughout tonight, so it will turn much clearer once that cloud and rain pushes away to the south and east, but it is going to turn much colder through this evening, as behind that cloud and rain we are into much colder air. So temperatures will widely dip down into the lower single figures, rurally into the mid-single figures for many towns and cities. But it will be a fairly bright start to the day on Wednesday, particularly if you are further south and east. Actually towards the north and west it's going to be another blustery day with frequent, possibly heavy, possibly thundery showers. And again, there's a risk of some snow falling through Wednesday morning over the high ground of Scotland, above around 600 metres, which is fairly unusual for the time of year. And it's going to be a fresher day wherever you are, with temperatures struggling to get into the high teens.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. On the M62 in West Yorkshire, the outside lane is closed each way for barrier repairs after an accident between junctions 23 and 22 between Huddersfield and Rishworth Moor. There are queues from junction 25 at Brighouse. On the M6 in Cheshire, 3 out of 4 lanes are closed northbound, with just the outside lane open between junctions 18 and 19 from the Pilwich and Holmes Chapel turn to Knutsford after an accident. There are queues from junction 17 at Sandbach. On the M6 in the West Midlands, there are 2 lanes closed northbound after an accident between junctions 10 and 11 from the Alston Wolverhampton turn to Cannock, causing delays. In London, the North Circular's closed northbound up onto the A40 at Hanger Lane after a lorry overturn. Delays on approaches to there, and there are delays of up to 40 minutes to trains between Watford Junction and Euston because of overhead line problems. That's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
It's the Great British Summer Giveaway, and have we got a prize for you? There's a totally tax-free £15,000 in cash to make your summer spectacular. Spend that extra cash however you like. You'll also win a brand new iPhone, Apple AirPods, and if that wasn't enough, a £500 voucher to spend at your favourite UK attraction, so you can enjoy amazing days out this year. For a chance to win the iPhone, treats, and £15,000 cash, text prize to 63232. Text costs £2 plus 1 standard network rate message, or post your name and number to GB06 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 28th of June. Full terms and privacy notice at gbnews.com/win. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Jubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the arguments. We get rid of the disrespect. And then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together, and what have we got? In my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
This is GB News, and we are Britain's election channel.
This vote may seem to be about the politicians and the media, but it's actually about you. We won't forget that.
Join us up and down the country as we follow every moment together.
More than ever, it's important to hear all sides
as you make your decision in the run-up to polling day.
This is GB News,
the People's Channel. Britain's election channel.
Good morning. Fast approaching 9 o'clock. It's Tuesday, the 4th of June. Thank you for your company. You're tuned into Breakfast with Eamonn Holmes and Isabel Webster.
We're with you until 9:25. Hope you can stay with us, stay on board. Politics leading for us this half hour. Nigel Farage promising a political revolt as he takes over Reform and announces plans to run for Parliament in the Essex constituency of Clacton. If you're from Clacton, let us know your view on that one.
A bombshell poll blow for the PM as he turns his attention to tackling immigration to boost the Conservatives' electoral chances.
Keir Starmer in Manchester as he warns about Britain's reliance on energy from foreign states.
And celebrations are getting underway in Portsmouth and Normandy as the 80th anniversary of the D-Day invasion begins.
And we'll be crossing to Portsmouth very, very shortly, just to give you an insight into what's going on there. But we begin with the election campaign trail.
Yes, the Prime Minister is battling what pollsters say could be Labour's biggest win in 100 years.
Well, in an attempt to win back disillusioned voters, Rishi Sunak has promised to cap annual migration. Earlier, we spoke with the Home Secretary, live on the programme, James Cleverly.
What we're doing now is we're saying in the future, we will balance both the benefits of immigration, of course there are benefits, but also the cost of immigration. And those two things have not been properly dealt with together.
So Keir Starmer heads to Manchester and he's going to flex his plans to introduce Great British Energy. He's warning of the threat to national security from foreign energy sources. We spoke with Labour National Campaign Coordinator Pat McFadden.
When we're vulnerable to global oil and gas markets, it can be very expensive for individual households, and everybody watching knows what's happened to their energy bills in recent years. But secondly, it's a vulnerability for the country. We can't just think about energy policy as energy policy anymore. It's got to be thought about as part of our national security. So this drive for homegrown renewable power will be cheaper for people in the long run, because renewable power is now cheaper than oil and gas.
Well, meanwhile, the Liberal Democrats are going to be campaigning for better day-to-day care for vulnerable adults, including the elderly and disabled.
So let's now go to our political correspondent, Catherine Foster, and she will round all of that up and talk about the latest polls and what they're saying. Catherine, morning.
Yes, good morning to both of you. So many polls, aren't there, at the moment? And all of them, frankly, catastrophic for the Conservative Party. Rishi Sunak chose to call the election now against advice, and up until yesterday it sounded like that was a good idea in terms of wrong-footing Nigel Farage, but that's been blown out of the water. So looking at the latest People's poll for GB News, Labour have a massive lead on 46%, Conservatives some 24 points behind on 22%, Reform on 10 and Lib Dems on 8. Also from that poll, a couple of interesting figures. People were asked who they would trust to defend them in the event of a world war. Only 21% said they trust Labour, only 18% said they trust the Conservatives, and 36% said absolutely none of them. And similarly on migration, we had asked if they trust the Labour Party on migration. Of course, Sir Keir Starmer last week, they were saying they were going to get net migration down. But, again, only 4% trust Labour a great deal on that. And 59% don't trust them at all. So I think what this poll shows is that there's so much disaffection. Of course, huge numbers of people very angry with the Conservative Party and planning, if they did vote Conservative before, perhaps to stay at home or possibly to vote for reform. It looks like much of the red wall that Boris Johnson took in 2019 is going to go back to Labour. It also looks like down in the blue wall, those traditional Conservative heartlands, the Lib Dems are going to quadruple their current seat tally. But, overall, despite this huge Labour lead, it does seem like people are not sold on Labour. They're just fed up with the Conservatives. And for many of them, they just think that Labour can't be any worse, which is hardly a ringing endorsement.
Catherine, thank you very much indeed. The 80th anniversary of D-Day, that is going to happen on Thursday. And, Isabel has been looking into your own family history as to what was involved here. And she was sharing with me last night various pictures and things, which I hope you show tomorrow.
Well, I couldn't find one of my grandfather in his military uniform. He was indeed a +1, so he wasn't one of those who were the really incredibly brave guys that came off the boats onto the beaches, the first ones facing machine guns.
No, you say D-Day +1. They were still shooting.
They were
D-Day
still shooting,
+1.
but I always feel you have to sort of caveat it. You know, he would always have played it down as being there on the second day. Still incredibly grateful, of course, to Grandpa. But anyway, I don't have any pictures of him in his military uniform. I've got a picture of him shortly after the war when he married his Belgian bride, because he was part of that liberation of Western Europe as they proceeded. Well, I think they got Paris by about August, and then they made their way, freeing it from the Nazis. And he met my grandmother in the process. So I would not be here if it was not for D-Day.
Yeah, it's just amazing. Your grandfather was involved, and your great-grandfather was involved in the First World War.
And the Second World War.
As well, and the Second World War. So it is amazing, that sort of military tradition, those people who served, who fought, and who survived, as it were. Let's go to Normandy. They're live for us this morning. Sophie Reaper to tell us more about what's going on there today. Sophie.
Very good morning to you once again. We're still live here in Arromanch, and I'm joined by perhaps my favourite ever guest. This is Noah. Noah is here with us in Arromanch. What an absolute delight he is. He's wearing his D-Day commemorative T-shirt, and we are sat in a replica Jeep. Now, this is all because obviously, we know it is D-Day, the anniversary, the 80th anniversary on Thursday. He's just getting himself comfortable. But over the past few days, we've been here along the Normandy coastline, and we've been speaking to people in all sorts of different places. And of course, the respect and the commemoration is a big part of this. But it's also about the celebration. You can hear this fabulous music in the background. People all over this part of France are just soaking in the atmosphere and celebrating the achievements that our troops accomplished on D-Day all those years ago, the sacrifices they made for our freedom. We've been speaking to people, as I say, for the past few days, and they've talked to me, even people who lost family members on D-Day, they still recognise the importance of celebrating what they lost to mean that we have freedom today. So I'm sure over the coming days, Noah and many other people in this part of France will be enjoying as well as commemorating as we build up to 80 years since D-Day.
Shouldn't joke, but the dog's turned his back on you, Sophie. So he might be your favourite ever interviewee, but I'm not sure he likes your interview styles. Fantastic to see everybody getting involved
You can't win
over
them all.
there in Normandy. It's a family affair. Fabulous.
Lovely. Right, OK, Britain's newsroom is coming out at 9:30 this morning. We look forward to that. Andrew Pearce and Bev Turner will be presenting that. But right now we're going to Portsmouth. Mark White there for us this morning.
Yes, good morning. We can actually just give you a quick shot down here. Hopefully you can see it. This is some of the motor torpedo boats that were involved in that flotilla taking the Brittany Ferries vessel with the veterans out into the English Channel just about 40 minutes or so ago, coming back into Portsmouth Harbour, having done their work for the day. And it was an incredible sight, I have to say, to see that ferry coming out with those veterans. Some 30 veterans managed to make the trip across. They've been taken over to Caen in Normandy to take part in commemorations over there. There will be a wreath-laying ceremony in the English Channel about 1 o'clock this afternoon for those veterans who are here for a few days off the commemorations. Those veterans will be taken to Normandy. There are other veterans who will be here in Portsmouth for the commemorations that will be attended by members of the royal family and other dignitaries on Wednesday, and then of course you've got the main commemoration on Thursday. I spoke to a few members of the public who turned up here in Portsmouth early this morning to see that ferry with the veterans leave, and this was their thoughts.
And it's just a privilege to be here today with the freedom that we all have and that a lot of people maybe take for granted a little bit.
Fantastic day. I think more people should be here, really.
Really kind of loud, actually, and really cool.
Well, it is incredibly poignant on so many levels, but mainly because as far as the veterans are concerned,
Carry on. I was just commenting on that vox pop you had there. I was seeing a young lad getting excited and seeing all the vessels depart. Fantastic to see that next generation getting engaged, because we know there seems to be a shortage of knowledge when it comes to the next generation. And I'm also just wondering, as I watch those incredible pictures of those boats behind you, that flotilla, how those veterans are feeling going back to somewhere where really probably they never wanted to go back ever again.
Well, a mixture of feelings. Of course, there's immense pride in being here. Many of these people, I mean, they're wheelchair bound now. They're over 100 years of age. I spoke to George Chandler, who was a young sailor with the Royal Navy who was on one of those motor torpedo boats back on D-Day guarding the fleet. And although he is almost blind, he's very deaf, it was just incredible to listen to him. He was so vivid in his descriptions of the horror that he witnessed as he was offshore in the torpedo boats, watching the Americans as they were on the beach that he was guarding, Omaha Beach, landing there, and he said effectively being slaughtered, young men that were younger than even he was at 19 years of age. And as I say, he was so vivid in his recollection, and he said to me, when I talk about it, I'm back there, I'm back on D-Day 80 years ago. So that's what it means for these veterans, even though they are very old in years, infirm, so many of them. They want to be back for the commemorations, knowing that this will probably be the last major D-Day commemoration that you will see veterans at. The last major one, the 75th anniversary, there were 500 British D-Day veterans still alive. Now the Ministry of Defence say it's fewer than 100.
Marsh, thank you. Thank you very much indeed.
Stark. OK, thank you, Mark White, there for us in Portsmouth this morning. We're getting lots more coverage from there over today and the course of the next couple of days.
Right now, just change mood. Hopefully put you in a very good mood if you were to win our great British giveaway. It is the summer giveaway.
Yeah, £15,000 in cash, a brand new iPhone, AirPods and £500 to spend at the UK attraction of your choice.
And here's how.
It's the Great British Summer Giveaway, and have we got a prize for you? There's a totally tax-free £15,000 in cash to make your summer spectacular. Spend that extra cash however you like. You'll also win a brand new iPhone, Apple AirPods, and if that wasn't enough, a £500 voucher to spend at your favourite UK attraction, so you can enjoy amazing days out this year. For a chance to win the iPhone, treats and £15,000 cash, text WIN to 63232. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. Or post your name and number to GB06 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 28th of June. Full terms and privacy notice at gbnews.com/win. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Let's talk to Bev and Andrew. 9:30, you guys are on. What are you concentrating on?
Well, Farage is still the only story in town, so we're talking to Michael Howard, the former Tory leader, who's coming on to talk and tell us why it's all not over for the Conservative Party, but it is.
It is?
Yes, it really is.
I think it's all over. It is not.
It is, yeah. I mean, and there's our own poll showing, the poll after poll, it's setback after setback. Yes, it looks like it. And
but you see, if a lot of this is a protest vote, and people are saying, oh, well, the Tories have really messed up and we have no faith in them, so we're going to give Labour a go. And people are sort of thinking this as if, well, and then if we don't like them, we can change them after 2 months. But of course they can't.
No.
It's going to be 5 years.
And the thing is, I think the kind of preconception has always been that reform appeals to the right wing and will steal votes from the Tories. There's a lot of what reform says that will appeal to Labour voters. And Nigel will appeal to those voters.
They could pinch seats in the red wall that Labour thought they were
100%.
coasting in to get.
Yes.
Yeah, I feel like there's a whole realignment in politics now, and it's actually probably more about immigration, Brexit. In terms of the two parties, rather than the traditional things about low tax, small state.
Yeah.
It's actually about, are you in favour of allowing people into this country, high migration?
Sure.
You know.
And also you can be quite certain now that Rishi Sunak is going to beef up his offering on the European Court of Human Rights and whether they can meddle in Rwanda. There'll be a big offering on that later, but it's probably too late now because Nigel is standing. And we saw in the referendum, he's a game changer. Ken Clarke, no less, one of the Tories' most successful chancellors. Nigel Farage is one of the most successful politicians of his generation.
Yes.
And he is.
But could he actually, ironically, be undoing the dream that he was the architect of by handing
that's what
keys to Downing Street?
I absolutely guarantee that's what Michael Howard will say.
Right.
He will unravel the Brexit dream because he'll give the keys to Labour, and don't forget, Keir Starmer was the man who wanted a second referendum.
And as Nigel said, this is about a 10-year plan for him and the Reform Party and the political right. He will make a massive impact on this election.
Yeah.
But what he's
Already
looking
has.
towards on the horizon at the next election.
And if he doesn't win, will he still stay on as leader for 5 years?
Said he would.
Then I think he probably would, with that in mind, with that long-term plan in mind. I think he probably would.
Yeah.
Well, suddenly it is a lot more interesting, and we're
Certainly
looking at this
is.
programme at 9:30. Thank you, Bev and Andrew.
Well, talking about interesting and endearing, we have got the story of a code breaker, a woman who worked at Bletchley Park and just busted those codes. And these made the D-Day invasions possible. And we've got her amazing story. Her name's Ruth, and we're going to be talking to her right after this.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. GB News, Britain's election channel.
I'm Michael Portillo. This is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Mervyn Kirsch was a boy when the war began. By D-Day, he was trained and ready to fight after years waiting.
It was taking a long time. I suppose I was an agitator.
He remembers reality unfolding to the sound of thumping guns.
In the morning, about 5 o'clock, they woke me up to say we were going towards France now, and I could see the outline in the dawn. And I could hear couldn't see, but I could hear the shells, big shells going overhead both ways. Nobody was bothering to fire at me, which was quite good. Then I began to feel nervous, and I realised it's not just an adventure, it's actual world war.
Mervyn served in the Ordnance Regiment. His job was to get supplies like ammunition and vehicles onto the beach. When an advance party, including some of his friends, were destroyed, Mervyn stepped up.
The head of me went to a reconnaissance unit. We were supposed to go on D+6. The reconnaissance unit was going D+2 to find a suitable site for 200 drivers and 1,000 vehicles, which we were going to stock, all kinds. They went across, but they didn't get across. They were torpedoed, the only boat torpedoed that day. I was put on a boat that night, any boat, going across, and told to find a suitable site for vehicles and men. So I just crossed over and I landed, got to the top of the cliff, and just with a strange driver in a tracked vehicle, told him just to drive down one of the roads and see what we can find.
The People's Channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
It's true. You're not wrong. No one
will be cancelled. Lovely. Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. This is GB News, Britain's election channel.
Welcome back. It's 9:20. We just want to bring you some breaking footage. This is happening as we speak of those D-Day veterans who are currently travelling from Portsmouth to Normandy. Look at that, fantastic, all giving us a great big wave, and we can see a group of them, many of them, as you would expect, well, incapacitated in their late 90s, early hundreds, some of them being in their late teens and early 20s during D-Day, and making that momentous trip back to the place where not only did they risk their own lives, but they saw so many of their brethren falling as well.
It's not just men who fought in Normandy, of course. Hundreds and thousands of women recruited work day and night to decode secret German messages that led to the Allies' success after D-Day.
Well, the historian and broadcaster Tessa Dunlop paid a visit to one of the codebreakers.
Operation Overlord, the unprecedented Allied campaign to liberate Western Europe and defeat the Nazis, has long been immortalised in films, books and documentaries. Much less well known is the crucial role hundreds of thousands of women from all walks of life played in D-Day. They occupied numerous vital roles, including at Bletchley Park, where the majority of recruits were female, working around the clock to deliver ultra-intelligence on enemy movements in France for the Allies. Among their number was Ruth Bourne. Nowadays she's 98, but then she was a young wren fighting the same war as the men on the beaches. Ruth operated one of Alan Turing's bomb machines that helped decrypt Enigma-encoded communications.
We were initially told the work we were doing was specialised. It was to be quite hard work.
So you are at the coalface of the decryption with the bomb machine, but once this ultra-rich material is being harvested, you then have to translate it differently from the original German.
You have to rewrite it.
Yeah, so the Germans don't know that you've been reading their hand.
Yeah, like the good old-fashioned précis that we used to do at school.
Could you explain what it was like to first meet a bomb and what those bombs did?
Well, we met the bomb. It was a little bit surprising. It was very tall. I think it was 7 feet high, 6 foot wide, about 2 foot deep, and it made a chugging noise as the wheels, all these wheels were going round and round.
Do you have any idea of the bigger picture of what you're doing?
Absolutely not. It was another job where women went and operated the machinery while the men went to war.
For many, many years, you weren't aware of the impact of what you were doing, and I find that really interesting.
It was only after 30 years when the security blanket was lifted and the first book came out, I read the importance of the Enigma secret.
It takes a long time, not just for women's war effort to be recognised, but more specifically, the secret work that women did. Ruth didn't get a Bletchley Park medal until the late 1990s, and then the pièce de résistance, her Légion d'honneur, in 2019, aged 94.
Now I know how important the work was. My life would have been completely different if it hadn't been for not just doing something in the war. Didn't make my life different. But when it all came out, the importance of what we'd done, I was very privileged to have been chosen. I know. I'm very privileged.
Thank you, Ruth. Thank you for sharing.
Ruth, I think it's us who are privileged to have someone like you, to have known someone like you, and to have had the service of someone like you and so many like her.
Absolutely. We will be remembering them over the next few days, but for now, have a fabulous day. Bye-bye.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good morning, welcome to your latest GB News weather update. It's going to be a fairly blustery day across northwestern areas. Some more sunshine to come for these areas, but this morning the best of the sunshine is across the far southeast. Now it will cloud over here later on in the day, but it's still fairly mild out there. Elsewhere, further north and west, it's turning much colder through the day. That's as this band of cloud and rain moves away from the northwest, sinking into parts of Wales, northern England, into central parts by the middle of this afternoon as well. We could see some heavy bursts of rain in here. Now to the north of here, we've got colder air, but some sunshine and some blustery showers moving in by this afternoon. Highs of around 14 or 15 degrees in the north, closer to 20 degrees in the south and east. Now through the rest of the afternoon, that band of cloud and rain will continue to sink southwards, so it will be a fairly bright end to the day across eastern areas of Scotland, but across the northwest, that's where we've got these most frequent showers, and you can see there is some evidence of snow falling over the high ground. That's above around 800 metres in Scotland. It'll be a fairly dry end to the day across northwestern England, parts of North Wales as well, but across central parts of England and southern areas of England as well, a pretty cloudy and possibly quite a damp end to the day. Now that cloud and rain will continue its journey south and eastwards throughout tonight, so it will turn much clearer once that cloud and rain pushes away to the south and east, but it is going to turn much colder through this evening, as behind that cloud and rain we are into much colder air. So temperatures will widely dip down into the lower single figures, rurally into the mid-single figures for many towns and cities. But it will be a fairly bright start to the day on Wednesday, particularly if you are further south and east. Actually towards the north and west, it's going to be another blustery day with frequent, possibly heavy, possibly thundery showers. And again, there's a risk of some snow falling through Wednesday morning over the high ground of Scotland, above around 600 metres, which is fairly unusual for the time of year. And it's going to be a fresher day wherever you are, with temperatures struggling to get into the high teens.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. On the M62 in West Yorkshire, the outside lanes closed each way for repairs after an accident between junctions 23 and 22 between Huddersfield and Rishworth Moor. There are queues from junction 25 at Brighouse. On the M62 in Greater Manchester, 2 lanes are closed westbound where someone's broken down between junctions 12 and 11 from the Eccles interchange to Birchwood. On the M6 in Cheshire, 3 out of 4 lanes are closed northbound after an accident between junctions 18 and 19 from Middlewich and Holmes Chapelton to Knutsford, with queues from just after junction 17 at Sandbach. On the M6 in the West Midlands, 2 lanes are closed northbound after an accident between junctions 10 and 10A from Walsall and Wolverhampton turn to the M54, causing delays. Now, delays of up to an hour with some cancelled trains into and out of Euston Station in London because of overhead line problems. And also in London, the North Circular's closed northbound up onto the A40 at Hanger Lane, where a lorry's overturned with long delays on approaches to there. That's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
In places like News Corp, right, an organisation I know reasonably well, when that poor guy died in America,
George Floyd, you're talking about?
Yes, they had a 9-minute silence for him, right? A more absurd and ridiculous idea I'd never come across in my life. How do you feel about 9 minutes for George Floyd?
Well, of course, that's the length of time that he was strangled by a police officer.
I know why it was, but how do you feel about that?
Well, I think a lot of the black staff in particular in News Corp probably appreciated the fact that it was taking a stand. And if you look at businesses...
Why do they need to take a stand about what the police do in the United States
well, what
of
about
America?
the guy... What about the jeweller tonight who has died in Richmond in Surrey when 2, how should we put them, hoodlums of colour actually had a chokehold? He went home and he killed himself. There are lots of things going on in our world, as you well know, which are very upsetting. Okay. And if we're going to stop every time that somebody dies in unfortunate circumstances, we'll never get any work done.
Well, Stella, a final word to you.
I think sometimes, yes, equality and diversity